Hey, warm up from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN family podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends, Ryan McIntyre of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. We're going to chat with him about some of the teams that might be starting to present some value here in late February, early March that maybe are a little bit under the radar. We know about the top teams, but there's a lot of Tier 2 and Tier 3 teams that are really starting to rise up there. Some teams in mid-major conferences as well that maybe got off to a little bit of a shaky start there are starting to ascend. We'll talk a little bit about those. We're going to dive into the slate that we've got for Sunday and also something that I like as well. Banking on teams are really good in terms of hitting the boards this time of year as well. So lots of fun to be had with Ryan in segment number 2. In the final segment, going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Sunday as we hit some bank shots. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, whatever for this podcast, you have one or two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_D1. Keep in mind, letters CM, they mean does not matter. So as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via the 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, we had ourselves a fun day of college basketball on Saturday. Let's take a look back at it, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
I'll get into the top 25 teams in a second, don't you worry, but we have to start off with the best covered team in all of college basketball doing it once again. Crack one open for Stone Cold Stephen F. Austin, 66-57 the final. UT Rio Grande Valley did not score in the first 7 minutes and about 15 or so seconds of this game. Now, Stephen F. Austin continues to be awful at the free throw line at 15-23, but they win this game despite going 5-23 from three-point range, won the rebound battle 44-35. They win the turnover battle 13-8, and Grand Valley shoots 5-26 from 3. They shoot 40% from three-point range away from home, like 30-31% at home, so wild and crazy there, but I had to give our ode to old Stone Cold Stephen F. Austin. And then in the top 25 games, Arizona now loses back-to-back games. How about Texas Tech? 78-75. They find a way to get the job done, and for the Texas Tech team, they are really starting to cover some numbers overall for the season. In terms of against the spread record, they're just 8-12, but if you look at them in conference play and conference play only, they've been able to have a really nice rise. They're now 8-4 against the spread in a Big 12 play, so that's been really nice to be able to see. As for JT Toppin, obviously he had himself a big game, 31 points, 13 rebounds, but Christian Anderson going 6-15 from three-point range, massive. As Arizona just 4-16 from the outside. Arizona does win the rebound battle by a count of 41-39, but also went 23 out of 31 at the free throw line. They missed quite a few of those shots at the charity stripe. Toby Awaka, 16 points, 12 rebounds, but not enough in this one. So a really nice winner out there for Texas Tech. How about this? A nice winner. Michigan all over UCLA, 86-56 the final. This was a game in the first half. Like, this was a 2-point game. UCLA was down 40-38. You thought you were going to get a good one, and then Michigan State just dump trucked them in the second half. As for UCLA, they lose the turnover battle by kind of 13-9. They lose the rebound battle 30-29, but I am the man that was able to take over for Michigan. Yaxel Lindenberg, 17 points, 8 rebounds. Ade Mera was able to give you a trio blocks as well. Just an overwhelming second half here from Michigan to be able to get the job done out there. You had yourself a nice display from Iowa State as well. Iowa State all over Kansas, 74-56 the final, and for Kansas, they just continue to be an under machine for you, by the way. Right now for Kansas, they find themselves as a top 50 team in the country, 17 unders to 8 overs thus far this season. And for Kansas, you did have Darren Peterson playing this game for 24 minutes, so you always want to be monitoring that. He had just 7 points, and really for Kansas, just nothing doing on offense. They lose the turnover battle 13-6. They shoot 37% from the floor, and it's not even like Iowa State was amazing from 3 at 11-30, though Milan Mimicevic just continues to be great. He shoots 4 of 9 from 3-point range, but Iowa State did a nice job on the glass. They only go 9-17 at the free throw line, but they do more than enough to be able to get the job done in this one. Also being able to get the job done was Virginia, 70-66. This was a closing total right around about 4.5, 5. Ohio State, they're going to be without John Mobley moving forward. They had to play without him, but Bruce Thornton, he was up for the test, 28 points. He was able to go 12-21 from the floor. Now Ohio State, they go just 6 of 9 at the free throw line, and for Virginia, 22 out of 32 at the free throw line. That was was costly if you had Virginia laying like 4.5 to 5, but Virginia does win the rebound battle 40-26. Did lose that turnover battle 12-8, but a good showing from Virginia on the glass. But Iowa State, without their main man, that was not too bad for them. Should say second main man. That's their number 2 scorer, Mr. John Mobley. For Kansas State, it's been a really, really bad year for them. And Houston has been 8-4 against the spread in conference play. But hey, Kansas State, who's been a money burner all season long. They are now 10-15 against the spread. They get a cover here, 78-64 the final. Kansas State, if I'm not mistaken, they got up something like, I want to say it was 15-6. They get outscored from there on a run of like 32-4. But hey, they were able to claw their way back in the second half. Houston goes 7-21 from 3. Emmanuel Sharp lived up to his name, 23 points. But for Kansas State, PJ Haggerty, he took it upon himself to be able to get you to the window. 23 points, 5 boards, and for Kansas State, they go 8-26 from 3-point range. For Kansas State, they most definitely lost the turnover battle in this one, 17-15. A little bit of a sloppy Joe's game, but hey, you know what? They were able to get a cover. UConn has been a stunning, really bad against the spread team this year. They get the win, but no cover against Georgetown, and now they are 9-16 against the spread thus far this season. Georgetown, by the way, 8-15 against the spread, so they've been rough too, but 79-75 final in this one. As for UConn, they go just 11-34 from 3, and Georgetown found it. They go 10-28 from 3-point range. Vincent Iwuchukwu has made a very big impact on the team, 16 points off the bench. And for Georgetown, they do lose the turnover battle 11-10. They lose the rebound battle 34-31, but certainly not blasted in this game. For UConn, Solo Ball was able to step up 20 points, goes 5-15 from 3-point range, but Georgetown was able to be feisty in this one, so they get themselves a nice quality cover. If you laid about 13 after 14 points with Duke, this was rough. 67-54. Clemson finds a way into the back door in this one when it looked like all was lost. Now, this was a competitive first half. 31-26 was the score at the half, and then in the second half, Clemson got down like 20 points with about 5 minutes remaining. They weasel out a cover by being able to get some garbage points. As for Duke, they win the rebound battle 37-32. They win the 3-point shot battle as well, as Clemson goes just 6-24 from 3, 10-29 for Duke. Duke actually loses the turnover battle though, 10-9. Cameron Boozer, 18 points, 8 rebounds. He was just fine. And for Clemson, whole was greater than the sum of its parts to be able to get you that cover. So yay verily to them. And Clemson continues to be one of your better cover teams in all of college basketball. Clemson against the spread this season, they find themselves 14-10-1. And Duke right now, they are checking in at right around about 13-12. So they've been a whole team against the spread this far this season. This is a team that has been very bad against the spread. Baylor, they lose to Louisville by a count of 82-71. Baylor has very much been slowed down here in the second half of the season. James Anji finally scored some points. That's great, but Baylor's now 10-14 against the spread, and for Baylor, they allowed Louisville to go 8-18 from 3-point range. Louisville actually loses a rebound battle 30-29, but they did a nice job in terms of being able to knock down their free throws, going 18-20 at the charity stripe. And Mikal Brown, 29 points, 6 assists, did have 6 turnovers in this game, but he came up big, and Javon Headley was able to get you 20 points as well. So the struggles for Baylor, they are very much real. BYU, the defense has really regressed with them. They get the win against Colorado, but nowhere close to covering, 90-86 the final. Now, A.J. Devonta had himself a nice game, 20 points, 13 rebounds, 8 assists, so he was nearing a triple-double. And Robert Wright, talk about Mr. Wright, 39 points in this one. He makes all 4 of his threes, 11-13 at the free throw line, and Colorado went 11-18 at the charity stripe. That very much costed them, but Colorado was able to remain lively as they did a nice job winning the turnover battle 16-7. They do lose the rebound battle 46-39, but they had 27 points of their own out of Isaiah Johnson to be able to hold within that one. So that was a stunning close game for Vanderbilt. They anchor down. They get the win and cover against Texas A&M. This by a count of 82-69. Vanderbilt started out so good against the spread to begin the season. Been a little bit wobbly, but still 14-11 against the spread overall this season. And A&M has been a very good cover team thus far this season as well, 15-10 against the spread. But in this day, you had Vanderbilt be able to do a nice job in terms of controlling the glass, winning the rebound battle 40-39, and they also had a trio of blocks in this game, as well as A.K. Okereke was able to give you 23 points. For Vanderbilt, they go just 9-29 from 3, but 23 of 29 at the charity stripe, while Texas A&M just 5-10 at the free throw line. And for A&M, they lost a turnover battle 11-9 in this game as well, and went just 8 of 29 from 3-point range. That was a good winner from Vanderbilt. Florida has all of a sudden really been able to cover a lot of numbers, but they don't cover this one against Kentucky. Kentucky holds within the double figures, 92-83. Florida's actually been now 9-3 against the spread in SEC play, but for Florida, still a little bit suspect with their three-point shooting, 10-28 from three-point range. They've been dominant on glass. They win the rebound battle in this game, 45-37, and they won the turnover battle, 14-11. But for Kentucky, you did have Colin Chandler come up with 18 points. Denzel Aberdeen, the former Gator, he was able to give you 19. So Kentucky, they do find a way to be able to get within the number. So yay verily to them. And for Purdue, they look to be back online. They take it to Iowa, 78-57, the final. An Iowa team that has been one of your better against the spread teams in all of college basketball this season at 15-10. But for Purdue, they were able to win this game on the inside. They win the rebound battle, 38-30. For Iowa, they just don't force the turnovers that they are used to. They lose the turnover battle 6-5, and for Iowa, they go just 6 of 22 from three-point range. Bennett Sturtz, 19 points in this game. Nobody else had more than 8 points. Meanwhile, for Purdue, you had Braden Smith only give you 5 points in this game, but did it in other ways. 12 assists to 1 turnover, 7 rebounds, and you had in this game Jakari Harris come off the bench for 14 points. So quality winner out of Purdue. You had a quality winner from St. John's in a game in which you saw 6 players get ejected. There was a nice little bit of a brawl out there at the dunk. I think that they call it Amika Fieldhouse now, but it's a dunk to me. 79-69, St. John's able to get the job done in this one. As for Providence, they've been one of your best over teams in all of college basketball. So this is a very rare under for them. They're still a top 10 team in the country with regards to over percentage, 19 overs to 7 unders. Only Denver has a higher percentage of their games going over the total, but for Providence in this game, just 5 of 23 from three-point. They did go 20 of 24 at the free throw line, and for Providence, they win the rebound battle 49-41, but they shot 33% from the floor. They also lost the turnover battle 14-5. As for St. John's being able to come up big in this one, you had Dylan Darling off the bench, give you 23 points. The Idaho State transfer was able to come up very, very large in this game, and then you had this team be able to come up big as well. As for Nebraska, 68-49, they get the job done against Northwestern, and that is yet another under in a Nebraska game. They've been one of your best under teams in all of college basketball, 8 overs to 17 unders thus far this campaign, and for Northwestern, just not a lot doing for them on offense. 3 of 15 from three-point. Nebraska, 11 of 25 from 3, with Price Sanford really headlining things, 29 points, 6 rebounds for Nebraska. They did have 18 turnovers in this game, Northwestern 16, so a very sloppy, gross game, but Nebraska able to get a nice, convincing win, so they do a nice job in terms of getting the job done there. And game number 1 for North Carolina without Caleb Wilson, not too bad. They do get the cover here against Pittsburgh, 79-65 the final. They go 9 of 25 from three-point range. They're going to be relying a lot on their low post play, especially with having Henry Vassar being out of this game as well, but stepping up in a big way, Zayden High, well, he got high on getting you 15 points, 7 rebounds. Sharon Stevenson was able to supply 19 points, and for UNC, they actually lose the rebound battle 32-27, but they won the turnover battle 12-4 for Pittsburgh. They just weren't necessarily efficient with their offense, as you did have in this game Cameron Gordon being able to give you 23 points, but been a rough year for Pittsburgh, and that's yet another L for them. Arkansas, they were able to get the job done, and they play a rare under against Auburn, currently doing this as they're wrapping up the final 2 minutes, but for Arkansas, they were able to have Darius Acuff and Billy the Kid Richmond both give you 23 plus points in this one, and for Arkansas, they've been one of your better cover teams in all of college basketball thus far this season, and Arkansas certainly has been playing a lot of overs. This was a game that went under the total. Auburn had been 14 overs to 10 unders in the season prior to this one, but for Arkansas, that extends them to now being 17-9 against the spread, so they've been rock solid there. And if you're looking at other of your trend teams, as we're going to try to get you Gonzaga versus Santa Clara, no guarantees there. Do have to have this up by midnight Pacific, 3 o'clock a.m. Eastern, but if you're looking at some of your better cover teams in all of college basketball, Eastern Michigan has been getting the job done. They don't on this day. They lose to Western Michigan, 76-62. That drops them now to 18-7 against the spread. They're actually your number 2 team against the spread in all of college basketball. We're starting to see some of these great against the spread teams take a few losses other than really stone cold Stephen F. Austin. As for Western Michigan, 9 of 16 from three-point range. They find a way to be able to get the job done. Eastern Michigan has been a little bit suspect on defense, but they've been a team of intrigue, to say the least. Out there in the SoCon, Mercer has been able to cover a lot of numbers, and they did so against the Citadel, 70-54 the final. Citadel, oh man. It's not great, to say the least, for them. Citadel loses the turnover battle 13-12. They lose the rebound battle 32-30. And for Mercer, they go 9 of 17 from 3. They shoot over 50% from the floor. Citadel shot 34% from the floor. And Barako Okoji, the George Mason transfer, 22 big points in this one. Mercer now 18-6 against the spread. Fresno State is 17-7 against the spread. Now, they were able to make light work of an Air Force team that I hope you're not betting on Air Force right now. It has not been a good season for you, especially ever since Joe Scott got suspended. Now, 7-17-1 against the spread. My gosh, these guys are terrible. And for Air Force, they lose in this game by a nice hearty score of 93-63. As for Air Force, they're starting to put up some points, but an Air Force team that, well, they've been rough on the glass. They were once again here. They lose a rebound battle 37-28. They lose a turnover battle 18-9. Just not good, to say the least. And if you're looking at your worst against the spread team in all of college basketball, the Kangaroos, which I love the mascot, so it's sad to see, they and the Roadrunners of UT San Antonio are your worst cover teams. Like, let's make the great mascots great again. The great mascots are having a really, really bad year right now, but for the Kangaroos, they get absolutely dump trucked by St. Thomas at home. 104-64 the final. UMKC goes 4 of 25 from 3. St. Thomas 40 of 69 from the floor, 14 of 29 from 3-point range. For St. Thomas, they win the rebound battle 38-25. They win the turnover battle 12-7. There wasn't a facet of basketball that UMKC had an edge in. It was not great, to say the least. And then if you're looking at another bad against the spread team, Florida Gulf Coast is 6-18-1 against the spread thus far this season. They are a far cry from the Dunk City days. And for Florida Gulf Coast, a win but no cover against Stetson, 78-76 a final. They've been overvalued all season long. Stetson holds in there, going 8-17 from 3-point. They were awful with their 3-point shooting away from conference, but in conference play, that's been able to shore up a little bit, so that's been helpful. Another team has been really bad in terms of covering numbers. How about Delaware State? They're 7-12 against the spread, and they're your top under team in all of college basketball. They have played over 75% of their games to the under thus far this season, and they played another under against Norfolk State. Closing total right around 133.5, 134.5, so just stays under, but Norfolk State 75-58. They're able to get the job down here at Delaware State. They had in this game a expose of going 15 out of 41 from the floor. They attempted 41 field goal attempts in a 40-minute game. That tells you where the offense is right now. Dean Shepard off the bench was their top scorer with 16 points, and he got 14 of them at the free throw line. So it's not been great for the Delaware State team, to say the least, on offense. So another under cash there. So yay, verily. And Southern Indiana, 8-15 against the spread. They had it taken to them against Tennessee Tech. Tennessee Tech goes on the road. They're able to find a way to persevere in this one by a count of 82-74. And Southern Indiana just has not been able to shoot all season long. They actually go 8 of 18 from 3-point range in this game, which for them is like finding manna in the desert. But that said, for Tennessee Tech, they won the rebound battle 37-28. They actually lose a turnover battle 9-8, but they go 15 of 19 at the free throw line. So Tennessee Tech, they do find a way in this one to be able to persevere, get the job done. So that was big for them. If you're looking at better teams against the spread, how about Sam Houston? 17-5 against the spread this far this season. On Saturday, they go on the road. They get the job done in a relative pick'em game against Kennesaw State, 83-79 the final. For Sam Houston, they've been a good 3-point shooting team, 7-17 from 3-point range. Meanwhile, Kennesaw go Owls, 10-24 from 3-point range, but Kennesaw 11 of 16 at the free throw line. Sam Houston State 74% at the free throw line, and for Kennesaw, they actually win the turnover battle 11-9, but you could tell Simeon Cottle, their point guard from the start of the season, was caught up in the FBI sting. They were really missing him in this one. Villanova's another team that's covering a whole bunch of numbers. 17-8 against the spread. If you, like me, had the under in this game, Creighton was falling down 12. I have no idea why, but for Villanova, another nice cover out of them. 80-69 the final. Villanova only 6 of 21 from 3, but Creighton 8 of 27 from the outside, and for Villanova, they do a nice job winning the turnover battle, 12-7, and in this one, Duke Brandon had himself a nice double-double, 21 points, 12 rebounds, and hey, Tyler Perkins, 11 rebounds, 17 points. So, Mr. Willard has things really going out there in Villanova right now. If you're looking to cash some tickets, the Pride of Hofstra have something going as well. They've gone 16-9 against the spread this far this season, and for the old Hofstra Pride, they hold in there against UNC Wilmington. This was very tight against the spread. This was a 70-66 final. In a lot of places, Wilmington was about a 2.5-point favorite. favorite, so unable to get the job done in this one. And Wilmington, they've been a 500 team against the spread this far this season, but those were two heavyweights in the CAA going at it. As for Hofstra, they did have still a nice performance out of Cruz Davis, giving 22 points, so they've been a team of intrigue thus far this season. By the way, we're going to give Kansas a little bit of love, even with the non-cover. Now 16-9 against the spread thus far this season. And Mercyhurst, if you're looking for a little bit of an under-the-radar team, 16-9 against the spread themselves out there in the Northeast Conference. They were hitting the road on Saturday against St. Francis. They got the job done 94-79. As for St. Francis, they go 7-15 from 3, but Mercyhurst wins the rebound battle 34-22. They win the turnover battle 10-9, and they go 16 of 18 at the free throw line. Kadir Martin, trio of blocks, 23 points, 8 rebounds. Have to love that. And the New Jersey Institute of Technology, now 16-10 against the spread. They were actually down at the half against a Maine team that's been awful with their offense, but they outscore them in the second half, 36-23. They were laying about a point and a half, 67-58. NJIT now 10-2 in the America East, another cover for them, as they have really turned things around ever since Melvin Ebon Coley, who he was transferring in from UMKC, got in there. He's been their top rebounder with about 7 boards, so got the job done there. And Maine has been a very, very good under team for you as well. For Maine, 11 overs and 15 unders thus far this season, so they've really been able to produce on that front. We've already taken a look at some of the top over teams in all of college basketball, but another one of them has been Xavier. 16 overs to 7 unders thus far this season. And for the X-Men, they do a nice job getting the job done against Marquette. Another over and another cover for them. 96-88, the final is Marquette. They have been one of your lesser cover teams against the spread in all of college basketball as well. If you're looking specifically at them, man, for Marquette, it's just not great. Marquette now against the spread, 8-17-1. I recognize that Xavier has not been the world's greatest cover team, as well as for Xavier with this cover, now 13-12 against the spread, so sort of ho-hum there, but Xavier, 16 of 34 from 3-point range. They win the rebound battle, 40-36 for Xavier. Jovan Misevich was the guy that stepped up with 23 big points, and Marquette and Nigel James go off for 30 points, but not enough in this one, as Marquette just very, very sad thus far this season, to say the least. Another team has been able to really hit the overs for you, Louisiana Monroe. 18 overs to 7 unders thus far this season. Out there in fun ball play on Saturday, they were able to help you out with that over very much so against Texas State, 95-84 final in this one. As for Texas State, they juiced up their way to going 5 of 11 from 3-point range. They shot 64% from the floor. A not so efficient Texas State team who they've turned the ball over left and right all season long, just 7 turnovers in this game. So Louisiana Monroe ghastly with their defense, but hey, Louisiana Monroe also went 10 of 18 from 3-point range. And let's stay out there in that conference, because this was one of the more incredible results that we saw on Saturday. South Alabama in overtime, 92-88 winners over Arkansas State. Arkansas State led this game by 17 points with about 6 minutes and change remaining. They somehow, someway upchucked a feat from the jaws of victory. South Alabama, by the way, now 13-11 against the spread, and they're just daring you to shoot from 3. South Alabama opponents are taking about 67% of their shots from 3, and Arkansas State actually hit them on this day. They went 16 out of 41 from 3, but what has been the forte of Arkansas State has been free throw shooting, 20 of 30 at the free throw line. Arkansas State wins a rebound battle 54-37, but they lost the turnover battle 18-5. Just an absolute wackadoo game that involved all sorts of craziness, with South Alabama having the Chaz Harris give you 30 points. So that game was a lot of good, clean family fun, and those are the ones that you love on a Saturday like this. And then we also saw this team get the job done again. We have to give a little bit of love here to Navy, who's now 16-8 against the spread, and they're a team that I thought had a chance to be able to win the Patriot League this year, brought back the most returning minutes of any team in all of college basketball, and they eke out an 84-80 overtime win over Colgate. For this Navy team, you had Jordan Pennick, who's been like their number 5 scorer, supplied 22 points in this game. For Colgate, they went 11-23 from 3, but 17 out of 26 at the free throw line. Navy 20 of 29 at the free throw line. Navy won the turnover battle 12-10, and they find a way to be able to cover yet another spread and get the job done. So yay verily to them. A few other good over teams. UNC Greensboro has been 17 overs at 8 unders, and they were on an absolutely atrocious against the spread run a little bit earlier in the season. But hey, for UNC Greensboro, they do find a way on Saturday to be able to get a nice win and over against Wofford, 99-89 the finals. Wofford is really giving it up on defense. And for UNC Greensboro, 10 of 21 from 3-point range. Justin Neely, 29 points, 16 rebounds. So shout out to him. He's been doing a nice job for that team. And then High point has not been a low point with regards to totals. 17 overs to 8 unders. They had the enviable task of facing off against Gardner Webb on Saturday, and they won 112 to 87. This was a line of 24.5, by the way, so this one was just barely able to eke by us. For high point, they went 14 of 37 from 3-point. They won the rebound battle, and I'm not even kidding when I say this, 44 to 15. How do you lose a rebound battle 44 to 15? I have no idea, but Gardner Webb somehow, some way found a way to be able to do so. And Gardner Webb, oh, by the way, they are not covering a lot of numbers thus far this season with the non-cover for Gardner Webb. A nice hearty 9-14-1 against the spread. But hey, Gardner Webb is another team that's been able to get you quite a few overs as well because they are playing absolutely no defense. They earlier in the season gave up over 90 points to non-Division I North Greenville. 15 overs and 9 unders for them thus far this season, so congratulations there. If you're looking at some of your better under teams in all of college basketball, Delaware State, who I mentioned before, 4 overs of 15 unders, and who has been another great under team. Very unfortunate in this one. Fordham is right now 5 overs to 18 unders. Their game goes to overtime, which costs you the under in that one against Rhode Island. They do get the job done, though. Fordham, 70 to 66 winners. They went 8 to 23 from 3 points. Jajor Reeves was able to supply the team with 19 points in this one, and Tyler Cochran, 25 points for Rhode Island. A Rhode Island team that's been playing relatively slow and controlled as well. Not quite the under team that you've been finding out of this Fordham bunch, but hey, Rhode Island, 14 unders, 11 overs thus far this season, so they've been another team of intrigue out there. Ball State has been a really good under team, 6 overs to 16 unders. We saw them in action a few days ago when they got absolutely just lambasted by Buffalo, so that was interesting to say the least. And for Ball State, they lose, but they get the cover against Kent State, 75 to 68 the final. That was a closing total that you found in that neighborhood of right around about 143.5. In a lot of places, you were just able to eke out an under. That was a opening total, though, more around about 141, 142. So that was one where it depended upon your number. Eastern Michigan, I mentioned before, 7 overs to 18 unders. They've been giving you a lot of unders. And Duke, getting back to that game against Clemson, they are now 7 overs to 18 unders thus far this season. And let's give some love to Bowling Green. They've been 7 overs to 16 unders thus far this season. They just barely keep it under against Toledo, but this is a Bowling Green team that has been pretty rock solid out there in the MAC. They haven't been the world's greatest cover team at 11-11 against the spread, but nice quality winner, 80 to 70. Javante Campbell, one of the best at being able to generate turnovers in all of college basketball for Bowling Green. They did win the turnover battle 9-7 in this game, and they go 11 of 21 from 3 points. That was a relatively fun game. And then another team has been able to cash you quite a few unders. UT Arlington, 7 overs to 16 unders, mainly because their offense has not been the world's greatest, to say the least. They actually lose outright to Southern Utah, 78 to 73, and a rare over for them, as Southern Utah is a team that really gives it up on defense. But on this save for Southern Utah, they won the rebound battle 38 to 28. And for UT Arlington, they actually won the turnover battle 16 to 9. But for the Thunderbirds, they were able to shoot 54% from the floor. So they did find a way to be able to get the job done in that one. And if you're looking at trend-wise where we're getting in college basketball right now, this is with a few of the very late games for Saturday still pending, but it has been all about underdogs and unders thus far this season. If you look at the last 7 days, the under rate has really been going downward, though. For the overs, they're starting to have a little bit of a come up, 162 overs to 138 unders in the last 7 days, and underdogs still hitting at 51% over the last 7 days, 153 and 147 against the spread. But if you look overall for the season, the under rate is now just a hair below 51%, 2,233 unders, 2,175 overs, and the underdog hit rate is 51.3%. Underdogs are at 2,259 and 2,148 against the spread. So that's where we're seeing college basketball right now, and that's where we're all getting trend-wise. Coming up next, how about if we do chat it up with our good friend Ryan McIntyre of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, radio on Coach Go Seats, with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Easton Family Podcast. Side edge this college basketball season? Well, VSiN experts use CBB Analytics, the most comprehensive college basketball analytics platform in the world. See injury impact, on and off data, clutch time performance metrics, first versus second half splits, and so much more. Utilize the promo code of VSiN, that is VSIN, to get $30 off and find your betting edge over at CBBAnalytics.com. That is CBBAnalytics, all one word, .com. For anyone that is new new to VSiN, well, I wish you a friendly hello. This is an attention to anyone that is new to VSiN because you're able to get some free stuff with our daily newsletter. It's a great way to catch up on everything that's happening in the sports betting world. It's delivered straight to your inbox every single morning. VSiN's newsletter offers picks, data, strategies for the day's betting menu, and so much more. Sign up for free today over at VSiN.com/newsletter. That's VSIN.com/newsletter and start receiving your free newsletter tomorrow morning. That is VSIN.com/newsletter. Stay ahead of the game and bet smarter with VSiN. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got Ryan McIntyre aboard. He does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network with the show The College Experience. He and Kobe Dan do a great job of breaking down all that we're seeing in college basketball. Not just the big games, but some of the smaller slates as well. They break down every game, every day. They do such a great job of looking at this sport. You're able to follow Ryan on the old Twitter/X at Moneyline_Mac, spelled MAC. If you're a West Virginia fan, he also does the Ryan and Rush show. And with Ryan, he has a lot of experience being on the sidelines for both South Carolina and West Virginia. So always great to get his perspective. And Ryan, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Greg, always appreciate it, man. I can smell it, and I know you can smell it. We're getting closer to that Selection Sunday.
Oh, we certainly are. It is going to be amazing. And how do you take a look at this time of year? Because now we're about 4 weeks away from Selection Sunday. We're starting to see some separation between the haves and the have-nots, but there are some teams that it feels like are in the middle of the landscape in college basketball. If you're looking at ranked teams, more of those tier 2, tier 3 teams, and even in the mid-majors, those teams that are 500, maybe a little bit, shall we say, above or below that are really starting to yield some value.
I agree. I think that this time of year, I think you see more and more where teams maybe that had injuries early in conference play are starting to get healthier and maybe are undervalued. Northern Colorado is the perfect team that comes to mind. They were the preseason favorite. They won in Colorado. They started 1-7 in the Big Sky. Now they won 5 in a row, red hot here. Those are the kind of teams I'm looking to buy here that maybe had some preseason expectations that just hadn't worked out the first half of conference play, but they've gotten healthier. They figured things out, and are a team that you might want to buy the dip coming down the stretch.
And I love that you bring up Northern Colorado because we talked a little bit off air because I mentioned it. You used to be a part of the South Carolina coaching staff, and you were in attendance a few days ago for Frank Martin and his UMass Minutemen as they were able to get a cover against Akron. How much should you take a look at good rebounding teams this time of year? Because you mentioned Northern Colorado, one of the best defensive rebound rate teams in the country. I just brought up UMass. They're a team that they do an excellent job of not allowing second and third chances. I feel like good rebounding teams are really teams that yield a lot of value here in February.
Yeah, I would agree. And good defensive teams, just because this is the time of year where the scouting report's already out on all these guys. You're so sick of seeing the same teams over and over again. You're just trying to get to the finish line where you can get some fresh blood and play somebody new. I love the defensive teams in the dog days of February, and that can control the glass.
Absolutely. As Ryan McIntyre, he does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He's joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops, and I bring up UMass because we've got a MAC that right now has been absolutely wild and crazy. Miami of Ohio, they absolutely took it to Ohio a few days ago. They are the lone undefeated team in college basketball, but I think that you might be thinking what I'm thinking, and that they might be a little bit more vulnerable than what a lot of people think, and with the weight of the world on their shoulders, we've got a few other mid-majors that they're going to be having like 0 or 1 losses here in conference play specifically, that they might be experiencing that as well. How much do you want to be looking at those teams perhaps crumbling under the pressure?
Definitely want to be looking at that because, like you said, we can have all the metrics, we can have all the eye tests and all the sample size, but these still are 18 to 22-year-olds, and game pressure is a real thing. I'll go on record saying I do think Miami of Ohio is going to lose once before the end of the regular season, and I think they will probably lose in the conference tournament. Now, if they get to Selection Sunday with 2 losses, they better be in the NCAA tournament. Yes. Because if a team goes 32-2 and doesn't make the NCAA tournament, then we might as well just rename it the Power 4 tournament, because that's an absolute joke. But as good as they're playing, there's quality teams in the MAC. You mentioned it. Akron is probably the most talented team. If Akron and Miami of Ohio play again, we know Akron will be laying points. They laid points at Miami of Ohio already this year. Kent State under Rob Senderoff's another program that's
Bowling Green is playing good basketball. basketball.
Yes, and Toledo's always good too. And I know I'm a UMass Frank Martin guy. The Akron guys went on record, basically off the record, saying that UMass is like the last team any of those top teams want to play coming into the stretch because they're making shots, they're really scoring the ball, and they have a veteran coach that's been to a Final Four in Frank Martin. So I think that Miami of Ohio is going to really be tested coming down the stretch. They got a couple of tricky road spots, and then obviously the conference tournament there in Cleveland. So game pressure is a real thing this time of year.
Oh, it certainly is, and I think that it's going to be so fun to take a look at that moving forward as Ryan McIntyre does such great work over the Sports Gambling Podcast. So join me on Coast to Coast Soups, and looking forward to the card on Sunday. I really like this card. Maybe we don't have the most rambunctious top 25 matchups or anything like that, but we've got some CAA, we've got some biggies, and we've got some American Conference action, and I know you've taken quite a bit of a look at the American Conference this year. How do you shape up that conference and the games that we are going to be seeing on Sunday? Because I think that North Texas versus Temple is a really interesting matchup. And additionally, what we're going to be able to get out of the likes of Wichita State and Memphis teams that were in action on Saturday and don't quite know the results as we're doing this podcast, but I think that that's going to be a fun race too.
Yeah, and what about South Florida at FAU?
Yes.
South Florida in the big win, back-to-back big wins, and going down to Boca Raton. They just played a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, the American, that's another league. It's going to be a one-bid league just because they've beat up on each other. That conference tournament, you could probably make the case for, 6-7 teams that could win that thing?
Oh, absolutely. And take a look at this North Texas team. If they can figure out any sort of offense away from home whatsoever, that is going to be a fun team as well. And that game against Temple, I think, is so intriguing because Temple's a slow and controlled team, but with Temple, you know that they're going to be so efficient on offense. And North Texas, they're the exact opposite, in which they're looking to slug things up and they're going to make life as miserable as possible on every single possession.
Temple currently has 7 teams projected between 13-5 and 11-7. And that's kind of what the eye test, I would say, says that any given game, any of these teams can beat anybody. I mean, heck, UAB has been so up and down, but how many times have we seen Andy Kennedy, another Bob Huggins guy, go on a run in March? A couple years ago, they win it from the 4-seed line. Last year, they go all the way back to the finals before losing to Memphis. So UAB is another team you can't count out because of their coach. And then I think South Florida and Tulsa have separated themselves from a roster and talent standpoint up top.
Totally agree with you. As Ryan McIntyre does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, is joining me on Coast to Coast Soups. And I will say, I do not think that UTSA is going to win the American Conference. If they do, then we've really got some issues. But I also have a little bit of Missouri Valley action as well. And the Valley is always a conference tournament that delivers. We've got ourselves another conference here where I feel like you could throw in there like 5-6 teams. You can name off any of them, pick a name out of a hat, and you say, oh, this team won the conference tournament. And I think a lot of people would be like, sounds about right. And I think that we're going to have some great action with the likes of Bradley and Southern Illinois and Indiana State versus Valparaiso on Sunday, too.
And, Greg, I know you're licking your chops here. Murray, Belmont, late Sunday night.
Illinois State, Illinois, Chicago, too.
Yes, but specifically the Murray-Belmont game with both teams being 1 and 2 and putting that in it's not a standalone window, but it's almost a standalone window where the people can get eyes on these programs and they can see how good they are. I'm glad to see that's a 6 o'clock ESPN2 game, but you mentioned it. I mean, Drake, Northern Iowa, we've seen that over the years be such a great rivalry. I wish Bradley, Southern Illinois was later in the night, same with Illinois State and Illinois, Chicago. If we could just get some more late night games, that'd be great, but it's going to be a great Sunday Valley. Shout out to the Valley for really leaning into this Sunday time slots where they're not battling 130 games on a Saturday.
And you'll notice on Super Bowl weekend, they put a lot of their games on Friday as well, which I thought was so intelligent of them because pretty much no teams outside the state of Illinois were playing on Friday. So that was good for them, and I felt like did a great job in terms of getting them some exposure. And with regards to that Sunday card as well, we always get a lot of the MAAC. I know that a lot of people like to call it the back of the back. I call it the MAAC. That way we're able to discern between the two. But how do you take a look at that conference as well? Because I've had so much success betting unders in that conference, and that's another one where it feels like you sort of try to pick a name out of a hat in terms of the team that's going to win the conference tournament because we've seen Merrimack towards the top of the conference. I like this Siena team, but it feels like the margins in that conference are so thin too.
Oh, always. I call it the MAAAC, 3 A's, because of the chaos that always comes in this league. I think Merrimack is the clear-cut favorite now. But I think from a roster standpoint, Quinnipiac, Siena, Iona, and Marist are all talented. St. Pete's having another really good year. I think this tournament's going to be total chaos like it always is.
Oh, it certainly is going to be. And are there any games in particular that you're taking a look at from a betting perspective on Sunday? Because we did mention that Belmont versus Rutgers St game, and that's a tight line of a 1.5. So that one is going to be a lot of fun. You mentioned Florida Atlantic. They're a home underdog against South Florida. And personally, I'm liking those points with Florida Atlantic as a home underdog. Anything else that's really standing out to you?
Yeah, I'm reacting to the openers here because these are just trickling out. I think I'm going to be on Florida Atlantic. I know that they have really struggled here recently, but I think it's a good spot here at home. They already seen South Florida's athleticism. It's also a travel spot coming all the way back from the Midwest. So I think I do like FAU in that spot. Murray and Belmont, I think I will be on the Racers here at home. They played a couple weeks ago. Belmont blew them out. I'll probably take Murray in the revenge angle. Shout out to the CAA, Greg, too. They got some late night games as well on national TV.
Oh, they certainly do. And I would be remiss to not bring this up as well. Illinois coming off of back-to-back losses. They're going to be taking on Indiana. Right now I'm seeing that opener of 10.5. How do you take a look at this Illinois team? Because prior to these back-to-back losses, I thought that they were one of the most underrated teams in all of college basketball. I thought that they were flying under the radar. And even with those 2 losses, I still feel like I'm in on this Illinois team, even though I might not be quite as in as I was about a week or so ago.
I'm in on this Illinois team. I wish they were a little bit better defensively, but offensively, they're a juggernaut. Back-to-back overtime losses. I think it is a nice spot to get right at home. I probably will be laying the number against Indiana. I think Indiana still, they've overachieved the Reason Company. Their margin of error is so small. So I will lay the points with Illinois. And speaking of Big Ten, how about your Badgers? Red hot here.
My goodness, this Wisconsin team going on the road, knocking off Illinois. And what do you make out of them? Because they've got that win on the road against Illinois. As we know, earlier in the season, they knock off Michigan, but they also took a bad loss at TCU. They've been life or death in a few games that they should not have been life or death in, to say the least, as well. This has been a team that has been up, down, all around. I go back to that home loss against USC where they went like 6 of 30 from three-point range. I feel like they're one of the most volatile teams in college basketball right now.
I mean, me and Colby were talking about it. They could be a team maybe on like the 7 line that could get to a Final Four, but also could lose in the first round. As you know, as a Badger fan, they've had a couple heartbreaks in that tournament, but I'm with you, man. I think that this team with those veteran guards, watch out for the Badgers.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be a lot of fun to take a look at them and so much more. And I know you've got your finger on the pulse of a little bit of everything, Ryan. You do such great work at the Ryan and Rush Show, Sports Gambling Podcast Network, and many other platforms. So let the good people at home know what's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Always appreciate it, Greg. Yeah, go check us out at the College Experience year round. This is a big month for us and a big month for you. What were we, 4 weeks now from Selection Sunday? It'll be here before we know it. We'll be there every step of the way, covering every game, just like yourself, man.
Oh, absolutely. With Ryan, he does such a great job of following this sport all 12 months out of the year. If you tune into the offseason podcast, he always does a great job breaking down the transfer portal with myself. He's always gearing up for this time of year, and he's enjoying it much like myself. A big thanks to Ryan for joining me on Coast to Coast Superstyle, part of the VSiN family of podcasts. And coming next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Sunday as we hit some big shots. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. Always great to be joined by Ryan McIntyre, who does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights, and he did so once again today. So big thanks to Ryan for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Sunday as we hit some bank shots.
Most financial establishments close at a certain time, but not here. It is time for a side and total on every game on today's betting board bank shots.
Do note that as per usual, any changes are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @GUnit_D1. We are going to be going in the Las Vegas rotation order. This is essentially time order aside from the Patriot League game between Holy Cross and Loyola, Maryland, and Eastern Kentucky versus North Alabama in the Atlantic Zone at the bottom. Pretty much everything else is in time order. Those 2 games are at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice and clean and easy. Let's get things started. 795, 786, it is Maryland, and they're going to be on the road against Rutgers. Rutgers surprisingly finds themselves as a favorite here of 2.5 points. It's on this game, 143.5 to 145, and I say surprisingly because they have not been a favorite in too many games as far this season, and I'm willing to take the points here with Maryland. I set my line at 1.5. I don't necessarily want the money line because, man, these are 2 teams that are rough, but One thing Maryland does an okay job is giving themselves second and third chances. This team is 114th in percentage of their missed shots that become an offensive rebound, and you got a Rutgers team that's been able to do a solid job here as well. They're about 98th in the country, but you got a Maryland team that has been outside the top 295 in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, and this is a Rutgers team that just doesn't finish down low. 343rd in 2-point shooting percentage. Maryland is bad, but they've got a little bit of an edge here. They're about 279th, and getting back Solomon Washington has been big for this Maryland group, as he was missing in the first few games of the season, and since he's come back, he's been able to give you about 10 points, 8.5 rebounds per game. David Hewitt has really been able to go into inferno mode here in conference play. 15.5 points per game, shoots 37.5% from three, specifically in Big Ten games. He has been able to supply 18 points per game, and then you've got Andre 3000 Miles, who in conference play shoots about 35.5% from three. Overall for the season, about 10 points, 4 rebounds per game. And on the flip side for Rutgers, it's just hard to have any faith in this team whatsoever. They are going to be looking to slug this game up, as in terms of total possessions per game, Rutgers is about 272nd in the country. Maryland was playing a little bit faster towards the beginning part of the season. They've been slowed down to about 224th in terms of total possessions per game. And for Rutgers, you've had Tariq Francis step up as the top scorer for the team. He's giving you about 16.5 points per game, shoots in the mid-30s from three, and Darren Buchanan does shoot 40% from three now. He attempts about 1 3 per game. He's able to give you 8 points per contest. Dylan Grant about 4.5 rebounds per game. You've only got one player on the roster, though, that gives you over 4.5 rebounds per game. Emmanuel Agbole, who's been just a mountain of a man, 1.2 blocks, 6.5 rebounds per game, but it is a Rutgers team that it's very hard to trust in a pressure spot. They shoot only about 72.5% of the free throw line. That's outside the top 180 in all of college basketball. They are outside the top 340 in terms of opponents' three-point shooting percentage as well, and with them not being able to execute on the inside and not putting you under duress outside the top 235 in terms of generating turnovers, I do think that Maryland holds in there. So set a line of a 1.5. I'm going to take 2+ with Maryland. Maybe I total 143.5, so at the 144, 145, I'm in on the under. 787, 798. Utah is on the road against Cincinnati, and yes, we're on to Cincinnati, who's on to being an 11.5 point favorite. Total on this game, 141.5, and I surprisingly like an over in a Cincinnati game. Cincinnati's been one of your best under teams in the country, but Utah plays with a little bit of pace. 127th in terms of total possessions per game. Cincinnati overall is about 143rd in terms of total possessions per game, but that has slowed way down since conference play has began. And for Cincinnati overall for the season, they're outside the top 240 in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. But last 3 games, they've actually shot a very high 49.3% from three-point range. Maybe they're starting to get a little bit of something figured out on offense. It is a Utah team that's ranked first in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, and they don't put you under duress. Cincinnati has been outside the top 240 in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis on offense. Utah outside the top 330 in terms of generating turnovers, so that helps out a backcourt that has Giselle James give you about 12 points now, shooting 44% from three. Day Thomas has been able to shoot 40% from three, 11 points per contest, and this is a Cincinnati team that's going to be able to dominate down low. Mustafa team, 11.6 boards, block and a half per contest. Bob Miller, 13.5 points, 10.5 rebounds, right around about a block and a half per contest as well. But this is also a Utah team that has been 27th in the country with their three-point shooting percentage away from home at 38%. You've got the best overall scorer in this game with Terrence Brown supplying 20.5 points. He shoots 34% from three. Don McHenry is able to shoot 39% from the outside, 17.5 points per game. Now, you've only got 2 guys on the roster that give you over 3.4 rebounds per game, but hey, James Okonkwo does give you a block, 5.5 rebounds per game, and then Keno Dawes, 12.5 points, 9 rebounds per game. Cincinnati, I think they're somewhere between A and B. I think that they're improving on offense. I'm not sure if they're as good as this outburst was in the last few games, but for Utah, I do think that they're going to be able to knock down some threes. I think that they're going to give it up on defense, but do enough to be able to hold in this game against a team that I just don't trust their coach in Wes Miller. So I set my line at 8.5. I'm going to be willing to take the points here with Cincinnati, and I'm in on the over sub total at a 144.5, 799, 800 on the card. You've got UT San Antonio. Meet the Roadrunners are on the road against Charlotte, and well, the Meets are a little bit more weak in this one because they are 14.5 to 15.5 point underdogs against Charlotte, and your total that is between 147.5 to a 148, and I'm willing to lay it with Charlotte. I set my line at a 17.5. UTSA is looking to play with a little bit of pace in terms of total possessions per game. They check in 117th. Charlotte, a very slow and controlled team, 332nd in terms of total possessions per game. And Charlotte, a good team on the inside, top 150 team with regards to their 2-point shooting percentage. You've had Anton Boinke come over from Providence. He stands right around about 7'2", and he's really been able to give this team some nice versatility. As right now, he's supplying about 10.5 points, 8 boards from 3-point range, shooting about 30% 32% for three. For a 7-footer, that's not bad. And then Zane Mingo has really helped the offense flow very cleanly. 12 points, 4.5 assists, shoots 39.5% from three-point range. Charlotte has had a bit of a turnover concern, about 250th in the country in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis on offense, and they are going to give you some clean looks outside the top 170 in terms of opponents' 2-point and 3-point shooting percentage. That said, this has also been a Charlotte team that has been pretty nice in terms of giving themselves some second and third chances in terms of percentage of their missed shots that become an offensive rebound, with Winky and company being able to step up. They do rank 71st in the country, and at home they grab 35.8% of their misses as an offensive rebound. UTSA, man, they are giving up all sorts of second and third chances on the defensive glass. 362nd in the games played away from them. 39% of opponents' missed shots become an offensive rebound. Just a skid mark on the underpants of college basketball. UTSA is 357th in all of college basketball in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. And on defense, they're 352nd in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Like, you've got Jameer Simpson, who's been able to give you 14 plus points per game. He throws in there like 4 boards. He's done his part, and depending upon the day, Austin Nunez is somewhere between 9.5 to 10 points per game to be able to help out a little bit, but outside those two guys, you don't have a lot of scoring. Brett Moss has been able to step up a little bit more, shoots 33% for three, 9.5 points per game, but it's just a big giant sea of red with their metrics. They shoot 29.5% from three. They're a bottom 10 team in all of college basketball in that regard. They don't even shoot free throws well. UTSA outside the top 275 in terms of ball security. I just don't think that UTSA does their part with the total. I don't think you get enough possessions for the over. Somebody told 144.5, like the under with Charlotte. I made them the 17.5 point favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay it. 801 and 802, you've got Indiana on the road against Illinois. Fighting Illini are a 10.5 point favorite. Total on this game, 150.5 to 152, and I like the under. I did set my total at a 147. You're just not going to get a lot of possessions in this game. You've got an Illinois team that does a really good job with regards to their defense, as currently in terms of total possessions per game, they check in right around about 298th in the country. That despite the fact that their last 2 games went to overtime. So, yeah, that's interesting to say the least. And then you've got an Indiana team that is a relatively mid-tempo team, 197th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. And for Indiana, I'm not going to call the defense amazing, but you know what, 77th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Illinois much better there, currently 69th in the country, and Illinois just does the little things there. Number 1 in the country in terms of fewest free throw attempts allowed on a per possession basis on defense. They do a nice job in terms of not allowing second and third chances, being a top 10 team with regards to rebound percentage, and they're a top 5 team in terms of points per possession as well, with Keaton Wagler leading the way with 18.5 points. She's 43% from 3-point range, and then David Marosic shoots 38.5% for the outside, 12.5 points, 8 rebounds per game. As a matter of fact, for Illinois, if you include Kylan Boswell, who's currently injured, each out of your top 6 scorers give you at least 4.2 rebounds per game. Even if you count them out, each out of your top 6 scorers that are active give you at least 4 rebounds per game. Andrei Stojakovic has been a little bit shaky, but his 3-point shooting, even though it's only 25%, he's still been relatively effective with about 13.5 points, 4.5 rebounds per game. And I did set Illinois here as an 11-point favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay it, mainly because Indiana doesn't give themselves second and third chances to score. They're outside the top 250 with regards to offensive rebound percentage. Now, you love what Lamar Wilkerson brings to the table, 38.5% 3-point shooter, 21.5 points per game, and then you've been able to get great production out of Tucker DeVries just across the board. 14 points, 5.5 boards, 3.5 assists, CO per contest, but this team has not been able to get a ton with regards to rebounding outside of DeVries, as you only have one other guy, Sam Alexis, that gives you over 3.7 rebounds per game. It is a team that, with regards to their interior offense and defense, has been solid, though. Top 20 team for Indiana in terms of their 2-point shooting percentage, top 40 team in terms of opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. Problem is, Illinois is a top 25 team with their own 2-point shooting percentage defense, top 35 team in terms of being able to shoot from inside the arc as well, and with this team not giving out second and third chances, I do think that's going to be a low-scoring game that Illinois controls the tenor of. Set my line at an 11, so we'll lay the 10.5 with the Fighting Illini, and I like the under. Set my total 147, 803, 804. You've got Denver on the road against Omaha. Omaha said Hike is a slim favorite here of 2.5 points, so on this game, 159.5 to 160, and I like the over. I set my total 163.5. You've got a Denver team that's been rock solid on offense, 64th in the country in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, and they shoot 37% from 3-point range. That's a top 40 mark, and their defense is terrible. 358th in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. They force no ball pressure whatsoever. 359th in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. Omaha's outside the top 275 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. You've got two neither here nor there teams with regards to their tempo. For Denver, about 160th in terms of total possessions per game. Omaha 167th, so both are very mid-tempo teams. For Denver, you've been able to get zany with Zay Nelson being able to supply 14.5 points, shoots 46% from from 3. Carson Johnson, 41% three-point shooter, 88% free throw line, 19.5 points per game in Denver. Top 30 team in the country with regards to free throw shooting percentage at 77.5%. They're not going to haul in their second and third chances, but they're going to get plowed on the glass. They're outside the top 250 in terms of defensive rebound percentage. They're outside the top 280 with regards to opponents' three-point shooting percentage as well. And for Omaha, I do think that they're going to be able to execute well enough to cover this number. I did set them as a 3.5 point favorite, mainly because with Omaha now you've got Paul DeBourget, who's back. He was missing for the first about 13 or so games of the season. Since his return, he's been able to supply 20 points, 7 boards, shoots 44% for 3 for an Omaha team that they're overall shooting about 35.5% for 3. Omaha's a top 175 team in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. They don't give themselves a lot of second and third chances, but they do a relatively solid job of executing. Neither team is going to put you under duress. Both are outside the top 3 in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis generated on defense, so you're going to get good, clean basketball here on both sides. Tony Osborne, Lance Waddles combined for about 26 points per game. Both shoot above 36.5% from 3. In a pressure spot, Omaha, they shoot about 73% the free throw line. Neither here nor there. DeBourget shoots 77.5%, so that should be able to elevate this team a little bit more, but I do think that Omaha could be a little bit better defensively. They've been a country average team with regards to opponents' three-point shooting percentage, and I do think that they went out against a Denver team that isn't guarding a soul. So my line at a 3.5, 1 to lay up to 3 here with Omaha, and I like the over. So I told 163.5. 805, 806, you've got Manhattan on the road against Canisius. Canisius does find themselves as a home underdog of 1.5 points. Total's game, it is 140.5, and so I told 141.5. I do like the over. Now, Canisius is one of the slowest teams that you're going to find in the country in terms of total possessions per game. They clock in a nice hearty 351st. Manhattan, about 192nd. That's country average. Manhattan's just been bad on defense. 337th in the country in terms of points allowed on per possession basis, and even though Canisius plays slow, it's not like they're some sort of an efficient defense either. 268th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, and in games specifically at home, that falls outside the top 285. Now for Canisius, you've got 2 guys that I really like that have been able to both give you about 13.5 or so points per contest. Brian Nadanja along with Khalil Singleton, and Singleton shoots 38.5% from 3-point range. You've been able to have Nadanja supply about 6 rebounds per game, and then Michael Everbrow, 6.5 boards, 8.5 points, a steal per contest. When Marcus Iblack was out there, he was generating turnovers, but unfortunately he's hurt once again. But that said, it's a Canisius team that's been relatively okay with regards to perimeter offense and defense. They shoot about 34% from 3, country average team in terms of guarding the arc. They are just getting blasted down low. This team is outside the top 325 in terms of opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. They're outside the top 340 with their own 2-point shooting percentage. I did, though, set them as a 1.5 point favorite just because this Manhattan team gives up so many second and third chances. Outside the top 340 in terms of defensive rebound percentage, they allow opponents to grab 13 offensive rebounds per game, and this Manhattan team is allowing teams to shoot 36.5% from 3. That is well outside the top 325 in all of college basketball. Manhattan, they themselves are outside the top 275 with their own 2-point shooting percentage. Now Manhattan takes care of the ball, top 80 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis, and if they can weasel their way to the free throw line, they shoot 80.2% at the charity stripe. Top 5 mark of the country. Devin Dinkins has been able to give you 12.5 points, shoots 34% from 3, and each of your top 4 scorers for this Manhattan team are all shooting at least 77.5% the free throw line, including top scorer Jaden Winston, 2.5 steals, 4 assists, 16 points, shoots 38% from 3-point range. Frazier Knight at the Roxborough overall for the season shoots 44% from 3, more like 36.5% here in conference play. I do think that it's going to be a game where it's going to be relatively low possession, but I think there's going to be a high level of efficiency on offense, but do think that in the end, Canisius being able to get those second and third chances, they do just enough to be able to get the job done here. Somehow line at 1.5, so I'm willing to take Canisius as a very, very slim favorite. If they become the underdog right now, mostly seeing them as a 1.5 point underdog, going to be willing to take that money line, and I'm in on the 140.5 to the over. 807, 808, you've got Youngstown St on the road against Detroit. Detroit is a home underdog here of 2 to 2.5 points. 151 to 152 is the total. Set a total of 152, mostly seeing 151.5. I'm going to be in on that over. You've got a Youngstown St team that has been able to do a relatively solid job in terms of being able to execute on offense. They're currently 35th in the country with their 2-point shooting percentage. Now, Youngstown St is well outside the top 275 in terms of ball security, but got a Detroit team as a bottom 55 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. Overall, Youngstown St is a top 75 team in terms of points scored on a per possession basis in a roadside should score venue. Overall for the season, Detroit has been a country average team at about 173rd in terms of points per possession, but Much of that was due to the fact that they were really bad with their three-point shooting to begin the season. All of a sudden, they're into the top 145 with their three-point shooting percentage at 34.5%. In specifically their home games, they shoot 38.7% from three-point, and that led me to putting them as the favorite here. I like them on the money line for Detroit. If you look at conference play and conference play only, they are shooting a sizzling 40.6% from three-point. TJ Nidu has been your main guy all season long from three, shooting 46.5% from three, 13 points per contest. You've had Orlando Lovejoy do a little bit of everything, 13.5 points, 3.5 boards, 3.5 assists, in a pressure spot, shoots 88% at the free throw line, and Detroit does a great job giving themselves second and third chances. They grab about 13 offensive rebounds per game, top 55 team in terms of percentage of their missed shots that result in an offensive rebound. Now they're vulnerable down low. They're outside the top 265 in terms of opponent's two-point shooting percentage. Country average teams in terms of being able to guard the arc. You don't really have like demonstrative rebounders on this team. Legend Geeter is able to Geeter done with about 6.2 rebounds per game. Low guy at the roster that gives you over 5+ boards, and then for Youngstown State, you've been able to have the true 7-footer be able to give you some shot blocking, and Emmanuel Zugaloff only gives you about 6.5 points and 3 rebounds per game, but has been a nice replacement to Gabe Dines. And then they're caroling all the way with Chris Carroll, give you 17.5 points, 5 boards, shoots 41% from 3. Rich Rolfe has been able to shoot about 38% from the outside as well. It's a game that I think is going to be relatively mid-tempo. Detroit right now about 123rd in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Youngstown State is 211th, but I do think that you get just enough shooting here to be able to get you the over. And I trust in Detroit in a pressure spot, especially with them shooting over 75% of the free throw line. So set Detroit as a 2-point favorite. I'm taking them on the money line, and I'm in on the over. Semi-total 152, 809, 810. Robert Morris is going to be playing us to Oakland. Oakland is a underdog of 1 to 2.5 points. Totals between 155.5 to 156.5. I made my total here a 155.5, so 156 plus. I'm going to be in on the under. Kind of a Robert Morris team that's not necessarily playing at an aggressive pace. 252nd in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Oakland is playing at a pretty aggressive pace right now. They are checking about 52nd in terms of total possessions per game, and as we know, it's an Oakland defense that's less than efficient. 320th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. They have been a little bit better when they've been away from home, though. Away from home, that ascends into the top 275. Meanwhile, for Robert Morris, where this team really thrives is being able to grab second and third chances. As they're a top 15 team in the country in terms of percentage of their missed shots that result in an offensive rebound, and Robert Morris a pretty lethal three-point shooting team as well. They are overall shooting 37.8% from three-point, which ascends up to 40.5% in their home games, and Oakland is a relatively solid three-point shooting team as well. They, for the season, are shooting 34.4%, travels relatively well, it goes down to about 34% away from home, but where the team is really making their bones is on the inside. They're a top 40 team in terms of percentage of their shots that come from inside the three-point line. They've been a top 125 team in terms of that two-point shooting percentage as well. And while this is an Oakland team as ghastly as they are on the defensive end, they've actually been an okay three-point shooting defense. They're a top 175 team in terms of opponent's three-point shooting percentage, so that's been solid. Now, where they're going to lose this game is giving up the second and third chances. They are outside the top 300 with regards to their defensive rebound percentage, which is rather shocking considering that Oakland has some pretty good low-post pieces, as you've got Bari Navarua, who's back from the season ago. He and Isaac Garrett combined for about 20.5 points, 13 rebounds per game. Brody Robinson is just a really good floor general, 6.5 assists, 17 points, shoots 35.5% from 3. Michael Hoagie throws in there 14 points, 6 boards, a little bit of a top-heavy team, but I mean, all these guys have been able to do a nice job. And then on the flip side, for Robert Morris, you've got Nicolas Chatakoulis along to Sean Good, who have been able to deliver the goods. These two guys give you over 16 rebounds per game. Good is continuing to shoot about 63% for 3. It's on low volume, but my gosh, it's incredible. 15.5 points per game out of him. Chatakoulis gives you about 10.5 points per contest, and Ryan Prather, after a little bit of a slow start to the season, has picked it up. Here in conference play, he's shooting about 38% for 3 with 17 points per contest. Overall for the season, 15.5 points per game. Now, Robert Morris, if they need to cover a game at the free throw line, they do shoot just 69% at the free throw line. Oakland is pretty sure-handed at the free throw line at about 74.5%, but I do think that with the way that Oakland gives up those second and third chances, it's just enough for Robert Morris to be able to get the job done. Set my line at a 3.5, so I'm going to be willing to lay up to 3 with Robert Morris, and at a 156 or higher, in on the under, made by total 155.5. 811, 812, you've got Bradley on the road against Southern Illinois. Salukis are a 2.5 to a 3.5 point home favorite. Total on this game, 144.5, and I mean by line 1.5. I'm going to be willing to take the points. Here's a big reason why, in my opinion, you just can't lay this number with Southern Illinois. Out of 365 Division I teams, the Southern Illinois team with their free throw shooting is a nice hearty 331st, which goes down to 65.6% at home, a bottom 25 mark in the country. Meanwhile, for Bradley, I'm not going to call them amazing, but away from home, they shoot 74.9% the free throw line. That's a top 100 mark there. The name of the game for Bradley is generating turnovers. In terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, this has been one of the better teams in the country. Now, that comes at the expense of giving it up from three-point range. Right now, Bradley is allowing teams in a roadside shoot score venue to shoot 38% from three-point range. That's outside the top 300 in all of college basketball. Meanwhile, in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, they are 25th in the country, and Southern Illinois not too shabby themselves in terms of generating turnovers, especially in their home games. Overall, they're about 98th in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis at home. That ascends into the top 55, but guess what Southern Illinois doesn't do on offense? Shoot it well from three. As a matter of fact, they have no interest of shooting it well from three. They're a top 15 team in terms of percentage of their shots that come from two-point range, and they shoot a nice, cool 28.5% from three-point range. That is a bottom 10 mark in all of college basketball. Kyle Rittenhouse has been your main scorer, 14 points, 3 boards, 3 assists. He only shoots about 24% from three now. Roland's LGB on really low volume has shot 46% from three, 10.5 points, 7.3 rebounds per game. The other LGB, Prince LGB, has been able to give you about 8 points, 5.5 rebounds per game. Outside of House, is pretty much a whole is greater than the sum of its parts collective, as you pretty much have 7 guys outside of him that give you between 6.8 and 10.5 points per contest. And other than the LGB, somebody else gives you more than 4.3 rebounds per game for a team that just really does not pop in from three-point range. Now, I will say Southern Illinois also does a great job in terms of guarding the arc. They've been a top 75 team with regards to opponents' three-point shooting percentage, but they are outside the top 240 in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis on offense, and Bradley does a great job taking care of the ball. 9.7 turnovers per game. That's a top 30 mark in the country. You've got Jaquan Johnson supplying 17 points, 2.8 steals, shoots 40% for three. Alex Hubigarse shoots 42.5% for three, 12 points per game, and then you've been able to get a little bit of mixing and shaking here out of AJ Smith, about 8 points, 4.5 boards, a steal and a half per contest. Again, it is a team that gives it up from three-point range, but that's much less of an issue here against the Southern Illinois team that does not do a great job there. Bradley, country average team with regards to opponents' two-point shooting percentage. Bradley really doesn't shine well on the inside. They've been outside the top 275 with their own two-point shooting percentage, but I just don't trust in Southern Illinois to be able to cover this number, and I do think that you get enough possessions here for the overs. Southern Illinois, 66th in the country in terms of total possessions per game, so a circumstance where I'm going to be willing to take the points, as I did set my line at 1.5, and I did make a total of a 147.5, so I'm also in on the over. 8-13, 8-14, South Florida is going to be on the road against Florida Atlantic. We give our own to Lane Kiffin go Owls, as Florida Atlantic is a underdog here of 4.5 points on all game, 163.5 to 164.5, and I said Florida Atlantic is 1.5 point favorite. I'm going to be willing to take a shot on them on the money line. It is a Florida Atlantic team that has been looking to push a little bit of tempo in terms of total possessions per game. They're a top 100 team in all of college basketball, not quite as fast as South Florida. South Florida, numero uno in all of college basketball in terms of total possessions per game, while Florida Atlantic is more around about 54th, but I think the Florida Atlantic is going to be able to do a good job on the glass. They've been missing their number 2 scorer, Cannon Carlisle. He's giving you 12 plus points per contest. He's been missing over the last few weeks. I would anticipate him being out, but it's still a Florida Atlantic team that shoots much better from three-point range when they are at home rather than away from home. This is a Florida Atlantic team that they shoot 39.1% from three-point range at home, 28.3% in a road/shoot score venue, and this is a South Florida team that is outside the top 250 in terms of opponents' three-point shooting percentage. South Florida, where they shine, is on the glass, 25th in the country in terms of percentage of their missed shots that result in an offensive rebound. As Isaiah Nelson is giving you about 15.5 points, 10 rebounds per game for this South Florida team. You've also been able to have Joseph Pignon along with Wes Enos really be able to carry the mail in terms of being able to give you three-point shooting. These two guys are combining for just under 29.5 points per game. Between the two of them, they shoot about 37.5% from three-point range, and then Joshua Machafo, a little bit of a stat-sheet sufferer, a pair of assists, a steal, 12 points, 5 rebounds per game, but with Florida Atlantic being able to do a relatively solid job on the glass. They're a top 75 team in terms of defensive rebound percentage. They themselves blow in there quite a few second and third chances, and they're a top 10 team in terms of shot blocking. Devin Williams has been the main man, 7.5 points, 5 boards, 2.8 blocks per contest, but Devin Vanderpool gives you darn near a block, 6.5 boards, 15 points per game. I do think that this team is still going to be rock solid on the inside, and then you've got Isaiah Elam, who's been able to give you 13 points. He shoots about 40% from three-point range in a pressure spot. Florida Atlantic, they shoot about 72% the free throw line. They're neither here nor there, but top 100 team with both their own two-point shooting percentage and opponent's two-point shooting percentage. I think they get an up and down game, but Florida Atlantic finds a way to pull out. Semi-line at a 1.5. I like Florida Atlantic on the money line, and I like the over. I set my total at a 170.5. 8-15, 8-16. Indiana State is going to be on the road against Valparaiso. Valparaiso finds themselves as a 4 to 4.5 point favorite. It's all scheme between 142.5 to 143. Set Valpo as a 5-point favorite. I'm going to be one to lay the number now. Valparaiso, awful shooting team. Outside the top 320 with their 2-point shooting percentage on offense. Not bad in terms of guarding the inside, though, especially in their home games. Overall, they're about 164th in the country with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. In their home games specifically, though, that ascends into the top 45, and Indiana State, that's where they shine. Indiana State is actually about a top 35 team with their 2-point shooting percentage, but they don't do a good job with their perimeter play whatsoever. They are finding themselves right around about 300th in the country with regards to 3-point shooting percentage, and this team is 307th in the country in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis on offense. Meanwhile, you got a Valparaiso team that is taking relatively good care of the ball. They're about 105th in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis, and D's, well, he gives you all D's of these 14 plus points per contest. He's been a relatively solid shooter at about 41% from the outside, one of the very few on the roster. As for Valparaiso, they only shoot about 32.5% from 3-point themselves. In a pressure spot, they shoot 71.5% of the free throw line, just hair outside the top 200 in all of college basketball. That said, this is also a Valparaiso team that doesn't really allow you to be able to get good looks from 3-point range as well. They're a top 100 team in terms of opponents' 3-point shooting percentage. Now for Indiana State, you've got Great Scott and Ian Scott, who's giving you about 13.5 points, 6.5 boards, 2.5 assists. He shoots 38% from 3. Derek Voss has been able to shoot about 44% from 3, but right now he's dealing with a little bit of injury. Camp Wagner, 12.5 points, 4.5 rebounds per game. But let's say that you get into a pressure spot. Indiana State, they shoot 67.8% at the free throw line. That is a bottom 50 mark in the country. And while Indiana State turns the ball over a ton, they really don't generate a lot of turnovers. They're right around about 270th in the country in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, with Valparaiso doing such a good job with their interior defense. I do think that they find a way to get the job done here. You've got a Valparaiso team that's relatively slow, 251st in terms of total possessions per game. Indiana State's looking to play quite a bit more up-tempo, 87th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. I think that you're going to be landing very near on this total. I set my total at a 143, so right now we're seeing about a 142.5, 143.5. Personally, I'd rather take a 142.5 over rather than a 143.5 under, because I think that's tight enough for late game fellas, and I'm willing to lay up to 4.5 with Valpo, made them a 5-point favorite. 8-17, 8-18, you've got Tulane, and they're going to be on the road against UAB. UAB is a 6 to a 6.5 point favorite. It's all in this game, 151.5 to 152.5, and for UAB, I did set them as a 7-point favorite, so I'm going to be one to lay the 6 to 6.5, mainly because I just think that UAB, being able to have as many clean possessions as they do, they are 4th in the country in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis, that wins out here. You've got a Tulane team that has been solid in terms of taking care of the ball as well, 88th in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis, and Tulane has one of the funkiest home and road splits with their 3-point shooting in the country. They shoot 29% from 3-point range at home, 36.9% away from home. UAB is a top 15 team in the country in terms of percentage of their shots that come from 2-point range, mainly because they just can't shoot from 3. 354, shooting 28.8% from 3-point range overall. It's a UAB team, though, that has been solid on defense, 85th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Tulane leaves something to be desired there, 187th, and Tulane is just going to get absolutely rocked on the glass. Right now, they are a bottom 30 team in terms of percentage of the missed shots that result in an offensive rebound, 358th in overall rebound percentage. Meanwhile, UAB is 76th, and even though UAB is not going to be able to get those 3-point looks or anything like that, you do have Chance Westery, who's been able to give you 14.5 points per game. He's one of many guys that just do a good job in terms of contributing down low with about 4 boards. He also gives you 4.8 assists per game to lead the way there. And then Kyron Lindsay, 11.5 points, 6.8 rebounds per game. Daniel Rivera, 12 points, 6.8 boards. Jacob Meyer as a guard gives you about 4 boards per contest. So these guys, they all do a nice job in terms of contributing to the cause. Now it is a bunch that they only shoot about 70% of the free throw line, have to have a little bit of caution there, and they go up against a bunch in Tulane that one thing that they've been able to do a really good job of is both getting to the free throw line and being able to shoot it well at the free throw line, with Rowan Brumbaugh doing a nice job leading the offense, 18 points, 5 boards, 3.5 assists, shoots 35.5% from 3. Tulane is the top 25 team in the country in terms of free throws attempted on a per possession basis. They shoot 76.5% at the free throw line. That is a top 45 mark in the country, but for Tulane, they're also a team that is outside the top 150 with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage, hovering right around about 175th, 180th with their own 2-point shooting percentage. Curtis Williams, Asher Woods both give you 12.5 points per game, and you've been able to have Williams give you about 4 boards, 1.4 steals per game, but Rowan Brumbaugh is right now the lone guy on the roster that gives you over 4.4 rebounds per game. UAB, I think, is going to be able to win this game from within. I'm willing to lay up to 6.5 with them. UAB, certainly our Blazers are about 36th in the country in terms of total possessions per game, so set a total of 153 153, so you're at the 151.5, 152.5. I'm in on the over. 819, 820. Wright St hopes to be the right side on the road against Cleveland St. Cleveland St is a home underdog of 6.5 to 7.5 points. 158.5 to 159.5 is the total. I did set a total here of a 157. I do like the under. You've got a Cleveland State team that's certainly looking to push some tempo in terms of total possessions per game. 82nd in the country. Wright State, about 217th in the country. A very mid-tempo team. It's a Wright State team that has been able to do a much better job on defense than they have in the past. And this is a Wright State team that they are a team that's going to give you some good looks from three-point range. Right now, they're allowing teams to shoot about 35.3% from three-point range as they become a little bit more of a team that gambles for turnovers there. Turnovers on a per-possession basis is currently checking in about 163rd in the country, but away from them, that ascends into the top 140. Cleveland State is just getting absolutely destroyed in the turnover battle. They are 321st in the country in terms of turnovers generated on a per-possession basis on defense. On offense, they've been turning the ball over well over 13 times per game, 288 in terms of turnovers on a per-possession basis on offense. And for Cleveland State, this is a team that they're selling out to be able to get good looks from three-point range. Cleveland State has Trey Beard shooting over 40% for three, give you 14-plus points per contest. Cleveland State overall shoots 37.9% from three-point range. That actually falls at 35.5% when they're at home, and then they've had Josiah Harris deal with a little bit of injury. They've got him back. He's been able to give you about 9.6 rebounds per game. One of two guys on the roster with over 3.6 rebounds per game is Dion Nasai. Has also been able to give you 15.5 points, 6.5 boards, shoots in the mid-30s from three-point range. And then on the other side of things, for Wright State, it's been all about Michael Cooper and what he's been able to bring to the backcourt. As a freshman, he has stepped up in a big way, supplying 14 points, 2.5 assists, shoots 36% for three. Michael Emma-Barrage has been able to give you about 12.6 rebounds to be able to headline things down low, but TJ Birch, 2.8 steals per game, 11.5 points per contest. And then Solomon Caglin, along with Dominic Pangonis, have been really good ancillary scorers as well. Both shoot between 37.5 and 39% from three-pointers. Between the two of them, you're getting 19.5 points per game. In a pressure spot, Wright State shoots about 72.5% at the free throw line. That's a country average mark, but this is a team that does a really good job of executing on the inside. They're a top 100 team with regards to their two-point shooting percentage. Cleveland State, country average team with their own two-point shooting percentage on offense. That's not really the issue. The issue is on defense are outside the top 330 with that regarding Cleveland State just getting rolled on the glass. 327th with regards to rebound percentage. Wright State more around about 115th. I do think that Wright State does the little things just right to be able to get the job done here. Semi line at 7, so here at a 7, 6.5. I'm willing to lay the 6.5. Really not willing to go a hair more than a 6.5, but willing to lay the 6.5, and I'm in on the underside by total at a 157. 821, 822. You've got Fairfield on the road against St. Peter's. St. Peter's is a 3.5 point favorite. Total on this game, 143 to 143.5. I am in on the under. I did so by total at a 136.5. Fairfield is not like the slowest team in the world, but they're not looking to push tempo. 266th in terms of total possessions per game. St. Peter's, shock, surprise, surprise. They're not pushing tempo. 320th in terms of total possessions per game. And St. Peter's, they really can't shoot. They are outside the top 320 with regards to their 2-point and 3-point shooting percentage, with their 3-point shooting percentage being 340th and 29.6%, but they generate turnovers. Checking in at 22nd in the country in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. Now, I will say this about Fairfield. They're a team that they really do just the little things well. They're about 81st in the country in terms of overall rebound percentage, with many of them being on the offensive glass. In games played away from home, 35.1% of their missed shots become an offensive rebound. That is a top 20 mark in all of college basketball. And Fairfield is 46th in the country in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis. Now, St. Peter's has also been able to do a really good job in terms of giving themselves second and third chances. As a matter of fact, 12th in the country, grabbing 36.4% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound. It actually goes down to about 33.5% at home. And for Fairfield, you've got two main guys that have been able to hit the glass for this team, as Brandon Benjamin, 14.5 points, 10.5 boards per contest, and Declan Wolfinger, he gives you about 12 points, 7.5 rebounds, just under a block for contest out of him, while Brandon Benjamin, about 1.6 blocks per game. Braden Sparks has been the main scorer, 17.5 points, 2.7 assists. He shoots 39% from three for a Fairfield team that they shoot about 33.5% from three-point range. Neither here nor there. Where Fairfield can really be had is that this team does not really put you under duress either. They're outside the top 200 in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, and this has been a St. Peter's team that has been about a country average team in terms of taking care of the ball. Now, they are dealing with a few injuries, as Bryce Eaton, who's been able to give you about 12 points per contest, he's been a little bit in and out of the lineup. He was able to play against Sacred Heart a few days ago. He didn't look effective, though, with 5 points after he had scored 15-plus points in the previous 3 games. So I think that he's going to be in, but might not be 100%. Brett Bland, 14 points, 5 boards, shooting about 36.5% from 3. And he is the only guy on the roster other than Eric Morgan Jr. He gives you 4 points per game. That's shooting above 33.3% from 3-point range. But TJ Robinson, Zakar Williamson, they've been able to combine for about 18 points per game. It's an interesting circumstance, as I did set St. Peter's as just a 2.5-point favorite. It is a St. Peter's bunch. They do shoot 74% at the free throw line in a pressure spot, but they're going to put you on the free throw line quite a bit. It's a Fairfield team that they've been a country average team at about 71.5% the free throw line, but with Fairfield doing the little things, grabbing those offensive rebounds, taking care of the ball, I do think that they hold in there. So we'll take 3+ here with Fairfield, and I'm going to be in on the under, with setting my total at a 136.5. 823, 824, North Texas is going to be on the road against Temple. We give our Odell Kiffin go Owls, as North Texas is a underdog of 1.5 to 2.5 points. 136.5 to 137.5 is the total, and I made my total a 132.5. I'm in on the under. North Texas, in games played away from home, has exceeded the barrier of 67 points in regulation just twice, and one of those was against a sad and pathetic UTSA team. Meet me for the Roadrunners. North Texas outside the top 3 in terms of points scored on a per possession basis away from home, but they're a top 20 team in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis away from home. Top 25 team with regards to turnovers generated on a per possession basis away from home. They allow teams to only shoot 29.5% from 3. That's the top 30 mark in the country, so they have been very good on the defensive side of things, and North Texas is not wanting to play very up-tempo games whatsoever. In terms of total possessions per game, 262nd, and then Temple, they're a pretty slow and control team as well, 295th in the country in terms of total possessions per game, but they do a nice job with regards to their overall 3-point shooting, as at home, they shoot 37.6% from 3. Doesn't travel well, they only shoot 30% from 3-point range away from home, but they do a nice job in terms of taking care of the ball. They're a top 30 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis. Meanwhile, for North Texas, you really have 2 main scorers at this point. Jashawn Stevenson gives you 17 points, shoots only about 30% for 3, but throws in there 2 steals, 2 assists per contest. And then David Terrell, your main facilitator, 4.7 assists, 13 points. He also shoots about 27% for 3. This North Texas team just has absolutely no 3-point shooting whatsoever. I'm not even kidding when I say it. Out of your top 7 scorers, you've got nobody right now shooting above 30.7% from 3-point range. Been absolutely ghastly with that regard. Meanwhile, you've got a Temple team that has Kevin Griffiths, who's been able to give you some nice versatility with about 11.5 rebounds per game. One guy on the roster that gives you 5+ rebounds per game, Darian Bilford Tough, though. He's been able to give you about 18 points, shoots 36% from 3-point range. Jemai Felt has been able to come up with about 4 boards, 3.5 points per game, so they've been able to get a little bit of something there. It is a Temple team that's been good with their outside shooting defense. Top 100 team with regards to opponents' 3-point shooting percentage. Can be at a little bit on the inside. They're outside the top 200 with their own 2-point shooting percentage, outside the top 175 with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage, and for Temple, they're outside the top 150 with regards to overall rebound percentage. So a very interesting spot here. I did set Temple as a 4.5-point favorite. This North Texas team, I just have zero faith in them being able to execute offensively away from home whatsoever, and do think that you get a slog of a game. So made my total 132.5 and on the under, and I'm going to lay up to 4 here with Temple go Owls. 825, 826. Merrimack is on the road against Quinnipiac. Quinnipiac is a 1.5 to a 2-point favorite. 140.5 is the total, and I made a total of 135.5. I like the under. Merrimack's such a slow, sloggy team. 357th in terms of total possessions per game. Quinnipiac is probably the fastest team in the conference. 128th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. And Quinnipiac, a relatively solid offense. Top 200 team in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. Merrimack is 203rd. Where Merrimack, I think, is going to lose this game is that they just get absolutely blowtorched on the glass. Quinnipiac is pretty solid in terms of giving themselves second and third chances. 85th in the country in terms of percentage of their missed shots. That result in an offensive rebound. Merrimack, bottom 5 team in the country in terms of overall rebound percentage. Right now, they are allowing teams to grab 40.3% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound. Dead stinking last in all of college basketball, and for Merrimack, they look to undo that by being able to generate turnovers. Says Merrimack has been a top 45 team with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. They're a top 35 team in terms of opponents' 3-point shooting percentage. Top 55 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. And on the offensive side of things, your top 2 scorers have been very good. KVR Kennedy, 17.5 points, shoots 35% for 3 with about 4 boards, 4 assists per game. And then Ernest Shelton shoots 36% for 3 on very high volume, 16 points per game. But nobody on this team gives you over 5 rebounds per game. You've had Todd Brogna give you about 6.5 boards, 2.5 assists per game. He's been better as the season has went along, and this team is still relatively solid on the inside with regards to their shooting defense, and they are 76.9% at the free throw line. But for Quinnipiac, I just think that they win this game on the inside because you've been able to get really good production out of Amari Monroe, who's been supplying you with about 15.5 points, 8 boards per contest. Not really going to shoot it well from 3, but Jane Zimmerman, top scorer at 36% three-point shooting, 16 points per game. He fills that void. Keith, give me just one more McKnight, about 11 points, 5.5 rebounds per game. Grant Randall throws in there about 6.5 rebounds per game. Quinnipiac, if they do need to cover at the free throw line, they do shoot just 69.5% of the free throw line. That's a little bit of a worry, but they're also a top 125 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis and very stout down low. Top 50 team with regards to opponent's 2-point shooting percentage. I think that that's good enough for them to be able to get the job done. So I set my line at 3.5. One lay with Quinnipiac, and I'm going to be in on this total under as well. So I total 135.5, 827, 828. You've got Iona, and they're going to be on there against Niagara. Niagara is a home underdog of 5.5 points. 131.5 to 132.5 is the total. I actually made a total of 135.5. I do like the over for Iona. This is a team that's looking to push a little bit of tempo. 145th in terms of total possessions per game. Niagara's not looking to push tempo. 363rd in terms of total possessions per game, and Niagara 331st in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. I will say their shooting has been much better at home rather than away from home. This Niagara team shoots 30% from three-point range away from home, 39% at home, but they do now face a Iona team that has been a top 45 team in terms of opponent's three-point shooting percentage. Teams shoot less than 30.8% from three-point range against them. I think that that's going to be their undoing because for Iona right now, their kryptonite has been down low. They've been a team that's been well outside the top 275 with regards to rebound percentage. Niagara well outside the top 300 with regards to rebound percentage. So Lamont Celebi, who for Iona gives you about 11.5 points, 8 rebounds per game, he's a top rebounder in this game. And then you got CJ Anthony supplying 14 points, 5.5 assists, shoots 36.5% from 3. Toby Harris shoots about 40.5% from the outside, and also in a pressure spot, shoots 96% at the free throw line. Denver Anglin has been able to shoot the mid-30s from 3, gives you about 10 points per game. And for Niagara, you just don't have the breadth of shooting options for this team. As right now, you've only got really one guy that's been able to give you double figures this year. That'd be Justin Page, who does give you 12 points per game. But here's the problem. He hasn't played in the last 3 or so games, and I don't think that he's going to suit it up in this game. That means that Justin Hawkins and Trent Walters, who combine for 16.2 points per game, and between the two of them, they do shoot about 38% from 3-point range. They're your main 2 scorers. You've only got 2 guys on the roster that give you over 3.4 rebounds per game. Will Short, Josiah Sabino, they both give you between 4.6 to 4.7 rebounds per game, but they're not really giving you any sort of shot blocking. Niagara has also been outside the top 255 with their own 2-point shooting percentage and opponent's 2-point shooting percentage. I think that Iona finds a way to get the job done, and against a Niagara team that's also outside the top 275 with opponent's 3-point shooting percentage, I think that Iona has their way there. So set my line at 6.5. I'm going to be 1-0 with Iona, and I'm in on the over. I did set my total at a 135.5. 829, 830. Indy is going to be on the road. They're facing off against Fort Wayne. Fort Wayne is a favorite here of 7.5 points. It's on this game. It is between 160.5 to 161, and I'm on Leo with Fort Wayne. I did set them as a favorite of 11.5 points. This is an Indy team that has just been ghastly with regards to their defense, and really both of these teams have been ghastly with their defenses. Both of these teams are looking to gamble for turnovers. Indy is 24th in the country in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. Fort Wayne, not quite that, but they're still in the top 50 with that regard. And Fort Wayne is a top 35 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis on offense. Indy, they're not terrible in terms of taking care of the ball, but they're not quite that. They're about 101st in the country, but these are 2 teams that are outside the top 320 with regards to opponent's 3-point shooting percentage. If you look at the overall rebound percentages, both of these teams are in the bottom 15. Purdue Fort Wayne is actually dead stinking last in all of college basketball. And for Purdue Fort Wayne, if you look at just points allowed on a per possession basis, this team is right now 307th in the country. Indy 355th. And I do think that Fort Wayne is going to be able to carve this bunch up. I'm going to be 1-0 mainly because I just trust in the Fort Wayne offense a little bit more than that of Indy. Indy has been able to get quite a bit of production out of Tyler D'Agostino, who's give you 18.5 points. He's able to shoot in the high 30s from 3-point range. Finley Woodyard has been able to give you 5 boards, 5 assists, right around about 10 or so points per contest. But for this Fort Wayne team, you've got a trio of guys that give you 14 plus points per contest. DeAndre 3000 Craig, main 3-point shooter at 39%, 14 points, 3 assists per game. Mikel Stevenson, Corey Adna, both give you 3.2 assists per game apiece. Between the two of them, 3.4 steals per game. Stevenson, about 15 points on 36% 3-point shooting. Had not only a mid-30s 3-point shooter, but he's able to supply you with about 20 points per game. And for IU Indy, they're also a good team on the inside with their offense as well. Top 75 team with their own 2-point shooting percentage outside the top 3 with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. But for IU Indy, even though you do have a guy in Jackson Edwards who's sort of been around the block, give you about 11.5 points per game, he and McGuire Mitchell are the lone two guys outside of D'Agostino that really give you over 9.5 points per game. It's an IU Indy team that you just don't know where the offense is going to be coming from. They're absolutely awful at getting to the free throw line as they give up about 12.5 more free throws per game to their opponents than they shoot themselves, and I think that that's going to be a big issue for them as you've got a game that's going to be, in my opinion, very much up and down. IU Indy, 10th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Fort Wayne, a little bit more of a country average team, but they're very comfortable playing at a little bit more of a fast pace, and I do think that IU Indy is going to have a very difficult time staying in this one. So set my line at 11.5, one to lay of Fort Wayne, and I'm in on the over, so my total 166.5, 831, 832. Ryder is on the road against Sacred Heart. Sacred Heart is a favorite here of 9 to 9.5 points. Totals between 149 to 149.5, and I'm in on the under. I said my total 146. Now, it's not because the Sacred Heart defense is any good whatsoever for Sacred Heart. Right now, they're checking in 306th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. It's because this Ryder team is that awful on offense. Ryder is right now shooting less than 28.5% from three-point range. That's a bottom 5 mark in all of college basketball. And some would tell me what these guys are doing right. Well, they're not the world's worst team with regards to rebounding. If you look at their overall rebound percentage, they're 242nd in the country, so I guess that that's halfway passable, but they are 349th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, 350th in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, and they're not even playing up tempo, 345th in terms of total possessions per game, and it's not like the Sacred Heart team has been a blazer this year. 207th in the country in terms of total possessions per game, but with this Ryder team, they're right now allowing teams to shoot 37.6% from three-point range. That's outside the top 320 in all of college basketball, and guess what Sacred Heart does? They take 51.7% of their field goal attempts from three-point range at home. That is a top 10 mark in the country, and Quan Hill was dealing with an injury to begin the season, and he was their top returning scorer from the season ago. He's back. He's giving you 18 points, 6 boards since coming off of injury. He's been shooting in the high 30s from three-point range, and then you got 3 guys, Jan Farrell, Deshaun Gittins, Niall Ralph Byer, all shooting between 42 and 43% from 3. Farrell gives you 11.5 points, 4.5 rebounds per game. Gittins, he's getting it with 5.5 boards, 14 points per game. Byer shoots 13.5 points per game, also shoots over 84% at the free throw line as well. And hey, you get Sacred Heart on the free throw line, they shoot 77.5% at the charity stripe. That is a top 35 mark in all of college basketball, and for the Sacred Heart team, they do allow you to be able to have good looks on the inside. They're outside the top 3 with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. And for Ryder, you do have a pair of guys in Caleb Smith, Shimani Fuller, who combine for 13.5 points, about 13 rebounds per game. And then your main 2 scorers are Zion Cruz, Flash Burn, a combined 27.3 points per game. All these guys, though, shoot below 28.5% from three-point range. They've got absolutely nothing going there. And they're outside the top 350 with their 2-point shooting percentage as well. So there's just not a lot to be had here for Ryder. They're not going to put you under duress. They're outside the top 330 with regards to turnovers generated on a per possession basis. I do think that this is a nice dump truck spot here for Sacred Heart to get a big win. Set my line at 14. I'm going to be willing to lay the number. Don't think Ryder does their part with the total. Set my total 146. So I'm in on the under. 833, 834. Siena is going to be on the road against Marist. And Marist is a 1.5 to a 2.5 point favorite. 132 to 132.5 is the total. And I'm willing to lay with Marist. I did set them as a 5.5 point favorite. You've got 2 teams that are supreme on defense. For Siena, they're a top 26 team in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis away from home. Marist overall 9th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. And both of these teams are relatively crafty in terms of generating turnovers as well. And also for Marist, they're a top 15 team in the country in terms of opponents' 3-point shooting percentage, but in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, Marist right now checks in 33rd in all of college basketball. Siena overall is 107th, but when you space it out to look at games just played away from home, they actually ascend into the top 35. So they've been able to do a great job away from home with their defense, as you've been able to get good production off Gavin Doty, 17 points, 7.5 boards, shoots about 34% from 3, and while Siena overall this year is shooting just 30.7% from three-point range, in conference play specifically, they do shoot about 34.5% from 3, and they've actually been leading the conference in terms of their 2-point shooting percentage. Problem is, you've got a Marist team that's a top 40 team in the country with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage, as well. To the credit of Siena, they take good care of the ball, top 80 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis, with Justice Schultz being the main facilitator, 13.5 points, 4.5 assists, stealing half per contest, shoots about 36% from 3, but their top rebounder, Tasman Goodrick, still currently out, so that hurts them quite a bit. And for Marist, save big money at Justin Menards, as he's been able to do a nice job being able to give you some good facilitation with about 3.5 assists, 11 points per game, and then Rajon Blackwell, Elijah Lewis. These two guys have been able to combine for 24.5 points per game with Blackwell. He's a main three-point shooter at 37% from the outside. And let's say that you get into a pressure spot. Siena's not bad at the free throw line. They're a top 100 team with regards to free throw shooting percentage overall at about 75%. Falls to about 71.5% away from home. Meanwhile, for Marist, they shoot 80% at the free throw line. Fourth in the country. Jaden Collins has been able to be a sure-handed guy. He's able to give you about 6.5 points per contest. Throws in their 3 assists per game. Shoots over 80% at the free throw line. Jaden Daughtry has been able to be a nice mixer and shaker down low. 5.5 points, 5.5 rebounds per game. I think that this is going to be a defensive slog of a game that Marist finds a way to pull out, and I think that they cover it at the free throw line. So semi-line at 5.5, I'm going to be willing to lay it with Marist, and I'm going to be in on the under. Semi-total of 127.5. 835, 836. Illinois State is on the road against Illinois Chicago. UIC finds themselves as a very slim underdog of 1 to 1.5 points. 137.5 to 139 is the total. And I did set a total of a 140.5. I'm going to be in on the over. Yeah, Illinois State defense has really been able to step up big time this year in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. They are 37th in the country. Here's the kicker, though. They are giving up 24.8 points more per 100 possessions away from home rather than at home. You got an Illinois Chicago team that has been outside the top 225 in terms of total possessions per game, and they're a rock-solid defense as well. Overall, they're about 97th in the country in terms of points scored on a per-possession basis, but if you look specifically at their home games, that actually ascends into the top 50 there, but they are going to give you a lot of second and third chances, which is something that this Illinois State team does not. Illinois Chicago is actually a top 40 team in the country in terms of percentage of their missed shots that result in an offensive rebound, but they do so at the cost of being 325th in terms of defensive rebound percentage. They allow teams to grab about 32.8% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound. Meanwhile, for Illinois State, in terms of defensive rebound percentage, 6th. Teams grab 21.8% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound, and I do think that that wins out here. It's a big reason why I did set Illinois State as a 2.5 point favorite, even though Illinois State is dreadful at the free throw line at 69.7%. That is outside the top 250 in the country, but you've got Chase Walker give you 13.5 points, 5.5 rebounds per game. You've had a pair of guys really step up from the outside, and Tariq Coleman, Bowden Skunberg, they combine for 21.2 points per game, and both shoot between 42 and 43% from 3-point. Johnny Kinzinger, your top 3-point shooter from a season ago, 11.5 points, 3 assists. He's only been able to shoot about 30.5% from 3. I think that steps up a little bit more. Illinois State has been a top 135 team. There's a few turnovers on a per possession basis, and Illinois Chicago, to their credit, this is a team that's very good in terms of generating turnovers. Top 50 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, but again, with this team, just being one that gives up those second and third chances, that's an issue, and they're not strong on the inside. They're outside the top 175 in terms of opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. Their own 2-point shooting is outside the top 245, and this is a unit that they only shoot about 31.5% from 3-point range. They're hovering right around about 300th with that regard. Now, you do have Elijah Crawford back. He was missing for about 12 games, 12 points, shoots about 31.5% for 3, which is sadly above the team average. 4 assists per game. Ahmad Henderson, 12.5 points. He shoots only about 29.5% for 3, but you've got Mekhi Lowry giving you about 8 points, 5.5 rebounds per game. Rashad Washington has been solid down low as he and Jason Nathaniel have both been able to get between 4.7 to 4.8 rebounds per game. But even though Illinois Chicago is a little bit better at the free throw line, I think that them giving up the second and third chances that they do is going to lose out. And I do think that this comes down to late game fouling. I think that you get just enough possessions for the over. So set a 12-140.5. I like the over, and with Illinois State willing to lay up to a deuce with them. 837, 838. Drake is on the road against Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa is a favorite here of 9.5 points. 136.5 is the total, and I made a total of a 126.5. I like the under. Northern Iowa, 360th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Drake is not a team that's really looking to gun it either. They're about 19th in the country in terms of total possessions per game, and Drake is pretty reliant upon 3-point shooting to be able to get their offense going. They shoot about 35.1%. That is a top 125 mark in the country. Northern Iowa is allowing teams to shoot 28% from 3-point. That is a top 5 mark in the country. Now, I will say this about Drake. Drake, if you look at them overall for the season, the defense has not been good. In terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, this is a unit that is checking in right around about 275th in the country. That improves to 128th away from home, and they are 70th away from home in opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. And Northern Iowa leaves a lot to be desired with their 3-point shooting. At home, they shoot just 31.4% from 3-point range. That's outside the top 280 in all of college basketball, even with having Leon Bond give you about 12 points, 5.5 boards per contest. Trey Campbell, 13.5 points per game. And Bond is a main 3-point shooter. He shoots 40% from 3. Will Hornseth also shoots 40% from 3, but he's He's taken fewer than 10 threes thus far this season, 10.5 points, 4.5 rebounds per game out of him. And for Northern Iowa, their games just do not involve a lot of second and third chances either. So you're not going to get second and third chances, and you're not going to get three-point shooting. As Northern Iowa, 360th with regards to their own offensive rebound percentage, 14th in defensive rebound percentage. They have longer teams who grab 23.5% of their misses as an offensive rebound. They themselves grab just a hair above 20% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound. And for Drake, they've been dealing with the injury to Wilkins Exacte. Down low is give you about 5 to 5.5 rebounds per game, but I do think that Jalen Quinn is a guy that's going to be able to keep them lively. He comes over from Loyola Chicago, supplying you with about 19.8 points, 3 assists, shoots 35.5% from three-point, and then Deshaun Thomas, 10 points, mid-30s three-point shooter. Oku Frederico has been able to give you about 5.5 rebounds per game. Drake has been a country average team with regards to defensive rebound percentage. They weren't grabbing any second and third chances for themselves on offense either, but with this being a Drake team that's pretty solid down low, Northern Iowa having some difficulties with their three-point shooting, I think in this interstate rivalry, Drake holds in there. So I set a line of a 6.5. I'm going to be willing to take the points with Drake, like the under. Semi-total at a 126.5, 839, 840. UW Green Bay is going to be on the road against UW Milwaukee, and Milwaukee does find themselves as a very, very slim favorite here at home, 1 to 1.5 points. Still on this game, 146.5, and I set Green Bay as a 1-point favorite. I'm going to be willing to take them on the money line. Now, the good news for Milwaukee is that one of their injured players is back, as Fazion Fields. He's been a starter in the front court. He's been able to supply you with about 6 rebounds per game. He is back. He hasn't necessarily about 100% since he's been back, but that's big because Seth Hubbard, their top scorer to begin the season, he's out of the fold. Danilo Jovanovic was giving you 12.5 points, 6 rebounds per game. He's been out for a month as well, so this is just a banged up team. Amar Uyagard is right now the lone healthy player that gives you double figures with about 13.1 points per game, and these are two teams that are really, really bad on defense. There's not a lot of defense being played in the great state of Wisconsin this year. UW Green Bay is 336th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Milwaukee is 319th. Milwaukee has been able to do a nice job in terms of guarding the ball. They're a top 100 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis on offense. On defense, they're outside the top 300 in terms of generating turnovers. Guess what? UW Green Bay does the exact same thing, and UW Green Bay, they're currently not dealing with all their players being injured, as right now you've got Josh Dixon, who's needing to step up for Milwaukee, about 9.5 points per game. He only shoots about 32% from three, and it's a Green Bay team that should be able to win that battle around the outside. As for Milwaukee, they're outside the top 300 with regards to opponents' three-point shooting percentage, outside the top 275 with their own three-point shooting percentage. Now, Green Bay is getting torched from the outside. They're allowing teams to shoot 36% per three, well outside the top 320 with that regard, but they shoot 36% per three, top 80 mark in the country, and you've got a quartet of guys give you double figures. Preston Rudinger, 42% three-point shooter, 11.5 points, 5.5 assists per game. CJ O'Hara, 14 points, 4.5 rebounds. He's not really shooting it from three, but Marcus Hall is 14 points, 5.5 boards, 2.5 assists per game. Justin Hall, he's been able to give you 13 points per game as well. It's a Green Bay team that's not going to give themselves second and third chances. They're outside the top 330 with regards to offensive rebound percentage. They're a top 125 team in terms of defensive rebound percentage, though, so they're not giving up those second and third chances. For Green Bay in a pressure spot, they shoot about 75% at the free throw line. Milwaukee more around 68.5%. With Milwaukee just missing so many different guys, I think the Green Bay gets the job done in what should be a little bit of a slog of a game. Milwaukee's a country average team in terms of total possessions per game, but with all the injuries, I wouldn't doubt if they have to slow themselves down. And Green Bay, 335th in terms of total possessions per game, so me, Green Bay, the 1-point favorite, taking Green Bay on the money line, and I like the under. Semi-total at a 141, 841, 842. Davidson, they're on the road against Dayton, and Dayton does find themselves as a mid-tier favorite here of 3.5 to 4.5 points. So on this game, 139.5 to 140.5. So Dayton has a 4.5 point favorite, mostly seeing 3.5, and I'm going to be willing to lay it. This should be a rather controlled game. Dayton has been playing a little bit faster, 115th in terms of total possessions per game. Davidson is on 348th in terms of total possessions per game, and it's a Davidson team that's been meh with their defense, 158th overall in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Away from home, though, that actually does go into the top 75, so I did set a total here of a 138.5 with Dayton being an incredible turnover team. They're a top 5 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, so I do like the under. Now, Dayton should be able to get some second and third chances. Davidson, in games played away from home, they're allowing teams to grab 33.7% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound. That is outside the top 275 in the country, and Dayton has not grabbed any second, third chances. They are outside the top 275 with this regard, but they were dealing with an injury to their big man in Emil Latang, who's giving you 11.6 rebounds per game. He's back at the fold, and then you've got good versatility out of Keontae Jones, 8.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, Siena per contest. Deshaun Montgomery has really been the head of the snake when it comes to this defense that generates so many turnovers. 15 points, right around about 2.7 steals, shoots 37% per three. Dayton has been a ho-hum three-point shooting team. They're only shooting about 33% from three-point range, and they themselves, they do gamble a little bit for turnovers, and when they don't generate those turnovers, they do leave themselves quite a bit vulnerable from the outside. Right now for Dayton, they are allowing teams to shoot from three-point range in that neighborhood about 35.9%, which does come down to 33.3% in their home games. Davidson, meanwhile, they've been allowing teams to shoot about 29.4% from three-point range away from home, but it is a Dayton team that I think is going to be able to do an okay job in terms of executing down low. They've been a country average team with their own two-point shooting percentage, but they get to the free throw line often. Dayton is a top 15 team in terms of free throw attempts on a per possession basis. Meanwhile, you got a Davidson team that really just doesn't have that star guy. Right now, your top scorer is Robert Blums, who's giving you 12 points, shoots 44% from three-point range, and outside of him, you've got an additional 6 different guys that give you between 5.5 and 10.9 points per game. You don't have a single guy on the roster that gives you over 4.3 rebounds per game, but they do have a guy in Sam Brown who's been able to give you about 9 points, 2.5 assists. He's been able to do a nice job doling it out. Parker Frederickson shoots 42% from three-point range, but for Davidson, they are outside the top tier with regards to opponent's two-point shooting percentage. They are okay in terms of not putting you on the free throw line, but not amazing there. But I do think that in the end, with Davidson shooting just 68% of the free throw line and Dayton being as, shall we say, rambunctious on defense as they are in terms of generating turnovers, that wins out. I'm willing to lay up to 4 with Dayton, set them as a 4.5-point favorite, and on the under. So by total, I had a 138.5. 843, 844. Charleston is on the road against Campbell, and the Fighting Camels of Campbell are a 1.5-point favorite. 157.5 to 158.5 is the total. I'm in on the under. I said by total 155.5, mainly because neither of these teams are shooting it well from three-point range whatsoever. Charleston is shooting 30.1% from three-point range, that's in the neighborhood about 335th in the country. Campbell not a whole heck of a lot better at 257th. They shoot about 32.3% for three. Now, to their credit, that goes up to about 36.3% at home, but Campbell's not really doing a great job in terms of executing on offense. They've been outside the top 275 in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis. Campbell, in terms of just raw points scored on a per possession basis, they're about 168th in the country. Charleston has been a little bit better, even with their bad three-point shooting. They're a top 175 team in terms of points per possession and games played away from home. This actually ascends into the top 125, but for Charleston, they're a relatively mid-tempo team. In terms of total possessions per game, about 118th in the country. Campbell's been looking to play a little bit faster, about 103rd in terms of total possessions per game, but hasn't really worked out for them, as Campbell's been also having their struggles down low as well. With Campbell, in terms of opponent's two-point shooting percentage, they are darn near 300th in all of college basketball. Now, DJ Turn It Up Smith, 20.5 points, 4 boards. He's shooting 36% from three-point, and Jeremiah Johnson shoots about 35.5% from three. Your other two top scorers, Davidius Buka and Chris Fields, both shoot below 20% from three, and you've been dealing with an injury to Fields, who's been your number 2 rebounder with about 7.3 rebounds per game. One of just 2 guys on the roster that gives you over 4.6 rebounds per game, so that's a big issue for this Campbell team. And I do think that Charleston has a little bit of warped stats just because they were dealing with the injuries to begin the season, as they were dealing with having Connor Hickman out. He's been able to come back. He's been able to give you about 11.5 points per game. And then Kobe Duggan, who was missing for the entirety of non-conference play, he's been able to supply you with about 10 points per game. Hasn't really upped out the three-point shooting, but I think that this team has a nice edge down low. Charleston is a top 175 team with regards to rebound percentage. Campbell well outside the top 225, with Jalen Counter really being the most versatile player out there on the floor. 16.5 points, 5.4 boards, 5.4 assists, shoots 34% from three. Christian Reeves, as a true 7-footer, comes in from Clemson. A block, 7.5 rebounds, 7 points per game, and then Child Michaud has been able to give you 2.5 blocks per game. Charleston, in my opinion, is a much better interior defense, and they've also been a top 125 team in terms of opponent's three-point shooting percentage. I think that wins out in this spot, and I just don't think that either offense is efficient enough to get you the over. So set my line at 3.5 with Charleston being the favorite. I like Charleston on the money line and the under. So my total at a 155.5, 845, 846. Belmont is on the road against Murray St. Murray St, a very slim favorite here of 1.5 points. Total on this game, it is 168.5. Set a total of a 167. I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the under, even though you know that you're going to get a lot of tempo in a Murray St game. Right now, in terms of total possessions per game, 41st in the country. And for Murray St, I do think that they're going to be able to do a solid job of just doing the little things better, because this is a Belmont team that, if you look at them defensively, they're a top 10 team in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis away from home. They're an absolute flamethrower from three-point range when they're away from home as well. Belmont is right now shooting 41.4% from three-point range away from home, overall 40.8%. Both are top 5 marks in all of college basketball, but it's a Murray State team that they make you pile drive the ball inside. Murray State is number 1 in the country in terms of percentage of opponents' shots that come from two-point range, and Belmont has been very good on the inside as well. They're a top 5 team with regards to their 2-point shooting percentage. But here's the one thing that Belmont doesn't do. They don't take care of the ball. In terms of turnovers on a per possession basis, they're about 296th in all of college basketball. Murray State can sometimes have a few turnover woes as well, but they're more around about 165th. And let's say that you get into a tight spot. For as good as Belmont is with their 2-point shooting percentage and their 3-point shooting percentage, massive disadvantage at the free throw line. Murray State, they shoot 76.4% at the free throw line, top 50 mark in the country. Belmont, 328th at 67.6%. And you've got Sam Orme, Tyler Lundblade, who have been rock solid. Lundblade actually shoots well above 85% at the free throw line. He's been shooting in the neighborhood about 38 to 39% for 3-point range, gives you 15 plus points per contest. So he's been able to do a nice job on that front. And then with Orme, relatively good versatility as he's been able to do a nice job in terms of giving this team like 13 points, 5 rebounds per game. But Nick McLean, who was such a big part of this team, he's currently out. He was giving the team 5 plus assists per game, and that puts a little bit more on the ancillary pieces for this team as you've been able to get some relatively good rebounding out of someone like a Drew Skronowski, 11 points, 6 rebounds. He also gives out 2.5 assists per game as a 6'9", little bit of a point forward, but doesn't give you like any sort of 3-point shooting whatsoever. And then on the flip side for Murray State, they have enough to be able to match up with that, with having Fred King being the king of giving you about 13.5 points, 8.5 boards, 2 blocks per game. Javon Jackson has been really good in the backcourt, shoots 37% from 3, 16.5 points per game. It's a Murray State team that is a top 50 team in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. They give it up a little bit from the outside when they do give up looks from 3-point range, so that's a little bit of an issue. And Murray State not really going to put you under duress. They're outside the top 225 in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, but I do think that a Belmont team that just does not shoot it well at the free throw line, this is a Murray State that will put you on the free throw line. I think that wins out in this spot, and just Belmont not being able to do the little things, I think is going to be very costly. So I did set my line at a 167 with the total, in on the under end with Murray State. Won't delay, it's set them as a 3-point favorite, 847, 848. Butler is playing us to Seton. Seton is a very slim favorite here of 1.5 to 2.5 points, 140.5 to 142 is the total, and with Seton, I did set them as the 2.5-point underdog. I like Butler here on the money line for Seton. This is an incredible defense. Top 15 team in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Top 20 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. I just don't trust in this offense. Right now for Seton, they're only about 187th in the country in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, and that's all thanks to the fact that they've been able to grab second and third chances in terms of percentage of their missed shots that result in an offensive rebound. Seton is 39th in the country at 34.2% of their misses becoming an offensive rebound. That does fall to about 29.4% away from home, and for this Butler group, they're 50th in terms of offensive rebound percentage. They grab about 33.3% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound, and for Seton, they're outside the top 285 with regards to both their 2-point and 3-point shooting percentages. To their credit, they do a nice job in terms of taking care of the ball, and you've got a trio of guys, Adam Clark, TJ Simpkins, AJ Stanton McCray, will all give you double figures, as right now for Simpkins, he shoots 40% from 3. He's been the lone guy of the roster that shoots above 34% from 3. Clark is a set, he's set for 4.5 assists, 2.2 steals per contest. Sam McCray gives you about a steal and a half per game. And then you got two guys down low, and Stephon Payne and Najai Hines, who will be able to combine for about 12.5 rebounds per game. Both give you between 6 and 7 points per game, so not necessarily dominant scorers there, but I do think that Michael Ajayi is going to be able to win that battle down low. His 3-point shooting is not what it was a few seasons ago, but 15.5 points, 11.3 rebounds per game. And then Finley Bizjak's teams, he shoots 36% from 3. Overall, it's a Butler team that shoots about 34% from 3, less than 32.5% away from home, 36% when they are at home. For Butler, they've been giving it up on defense as well. They're outside the top 160 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, being outside the top 200 with regards to opponent's 2-point shooting percentage is not necessarily great, but I do think that they find a way to be able to pull this game out, as they've been able to get some relatively good production as well. Jamie Kaiser, who's been able to give you about 10 points per game, he is able to shoot about 34% for 3-point range, and Evan Hayward shooting now 38% from 3-point range, has stepped up in a pretty nice way here in conference play ever since the injury to Jalen Jackson. I think it's just enough for them to be able to win out. I did set my total 142.5. You've got a Butler team that is going to be the exact opposite of Seton. Butler 63rd in terms of total possessions per game. They're pushing tempo. Seton 289th. I think that those late fouls do just enough for the over, so like the over and Butler here on the money line. 849, 850. San Francisco is going to be on the road against San Diego. San Diego does find themselves as a home underdog of 3.5 points, and your total is anywhere between 147.5 to 148.5, and I set San Diego as the 6.5-point underdog. I'm going to be one to lay it for San Diego. Tyler Johnson was their top scorer. He was supplying the team with, in that neighborhood, about 14 points per game, was shooting it relatively well from three. But the bigger thing was San Diego's a top 35 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, led the way with 2.3 steals and also 4.3 assists per game. He is no longer with the team, and that's an issue. That means that you've got only two guys on the roster that give you double figures. Donari Lane shoots 43% from three with 10.5 points per game, and then Juan Sebastian Gorosito has been able to shoot about 38% from three. He supplies you with about 10.5 points per game. These are the lone two guys that you can really rely upon right now, and then you've got Asane Diop, who's been able to give you 5 rebounds per game. He is the only guy on the roster that gives you over 4 boards per contest, so you've got a lot of issues there. Meanwhile, on the flip side, you do have a San Francisco team that just does not put you under duress. They're outside the top 3 in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, but they're now starting to get back Mookie Cook, who was dealing with an injury throughout much of the month of January. When he's been out there, he's been able to give you about 8.5 points, shoots 40% from 3 for a San Francisco team that's neither here nor there, shooting about 34.5% from 3-point range, but this is a San Francisco team that has a massive advantage on the glass, 93rd in the country in terms of rebound percentage. San Francisco is facing a San Diego team that's about 340th with regards to their rebound percentage. Now for San Francisco, they themselves are outside the top 240 with their own 2-point shooting percentage, but they've been good in terms of not allowing good looks from 2-point range to opponents as well, and with San Francisco having Ryan Beasley giving you about 14 points, 3.5 assists per game, I think that that's going to be important. David Fuchs along Tyrone Riley, they combine for about 12.3 rebounds per game. San Francisco doing a relatively solid job taking care of the ball, top 125 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis. San Francisco is still slow, but they've been speeding themselves up a little bit, 269th in terms of total possessions per game. For San Diego, they are looking to play with quite a bit of tempo, 134th in terms of total possessions per game. Might be slowed down a little bit with Johnson being out of the fold, but I think they get much more clean possessions with Johnson no longer being out there. That allows San Francisco to be able to set up their offense, run more clean offense, and be able to pick apart a San Diego team that has not been the world's greatest with regards to opponents' shooting percentages. As for the San Diego team, they have been giving up quite a bit from the outside right now. Teams from 3-point range are shooting overall for the season right around about 32.8% from 3-point range against them, but keep in mind that Johnson was out there for much of those games. That was about country average. I think that goes northward, and I think that San Francisco exploits it. So I set my line at 6.5. I'm going to be willing to lay with San Francisco and made a total of a 150.5. I like the over. 851, 852. Monmouth is going to be playing us at Towson, and Towson is a very slim underdog here of 1.5 to 2.5 points. 136.5 is the total, and I set Towson as a 3-point dog. I'm going to be willing to lay the small number here with Monmouth, mainly because for Monmouth, I do think that they're going to be able to find a way to be able to force this to be a game that involves late game fouls, and you just can't trust in the Towson team to be able to cover a number like this. For Towson, right now they're about 313th in the country with their free throw shooting percentage at 68.1%, goes down to 67.7% away from home. Monmouth, they're 74.1%. I'm not going to call them the most amazing free throw shooting team in the world, but that's not bad. And for Monmouth, this is a country average team with regards to opponents' 3-point shooting percentage, but they're a team that ranks 77th in terms of opponents' 2-point shooting percentage, and that's important because Towson, right now, they shoot about 27.5% or so from 3-point range. That is a bottom 10 mark in all of college basketball. Now, Towson has been a top 40 team with regards to percentage of their missed shots that result in an offensive rebound, and you got Tyler Teata, Dylan Williamson, pair of double-figure scores with Teata, give you 17.5 points per contest. Williamson has been able to give you 15-plus points per game as well, but there's a lot of issues to be had for the team on offense. They're well outside the top 225 in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, and Monmouth, they are 19th in the country in terms of percentage of their shots that come from 2-point range, and they're outside the top 320 with their 2-point shooting percentage at home, but they're also a very stout team on the inside, being a top 40 team with regards to shot block rate, as Jason Rivera-Torres does a bit of everything. Block and a half, 2 steals, 8 boards, 16 points per game, and then you've been able to get relatively good production as well down low at Doc Mortar. He only gives you about 4 points per game, but throws in there a block and a half per game. Davion McClain is now eligible for this team as well. He was dealing with a lot of injury, comes over from Texas Southern where he was a double-figure scorer last season. In the 2 games that he's played, he's given you combined 34 points. I don't think that he's going to be able to continue that, but hey, you know what? That helps out because you still have Justin Ray being able to shoot 40% from 3-point range. Andrew Ball's been able to give you 8.5 points, throws in there a few assists per game, and Towson is not a team that's going to put you under duress. They're outside the top 275 in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. Now you do have Jack Dumbia down low, who's able to give you about 10.5 points, 5.5 rebounds per game, but for Towson, I just don't trust in the shooting to be able to get it done for this team, and I think that you get a slow down slog with Towson being about 351st in terms of total possessions per game. Made a total of 129, like the under animal to lay up to 2.5 with Monmouth. This is the Last game on the normal Las Vegas betting board before we hit the extra games, 8:53, 8:54, Oregon State on the road against Seattle. Seattle is a pretty mid-tier favorite here as you're going to be laying with them 6.5 points, 136.5 to 138.5 is the total. Set a total of 134.5. I do like the under. Oregon State is a pretty slow and controlled team, 294th in terms of total possessions per game. Seattle's actually played with a little bit of tempo this year, 156th in the country with regards to total possessions per game, but it's a Seattle team that has been locked down with their defense. At home, teams are only shooting 29.5% from three-point range against them. They're really good in terms of generating turnovers, 18th in the country in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, and if you just look at points allowed on a per possession basis, 34th in the country. Oregon State, they're a neither here nor there defense. In games played away from them, they're hovering right around about 250th in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, mainly because the team is just getting absolutely tattooed down low. In terms of overall rebound percentage, Oregon State 290th in all of college basketball. You don't have a single guy on the roster that gives you over 5 rebounds per game, as you've had Josiah Lake be Mr. Versatile for the team, 13.5 points, 4 assists, 4.3 rebounds per game. Only Joan Munch, who gives you 4.8 rebounds per game, gives you more boards per contest. Now, Lake has been able to shoot about 39% for 3. Isaiah C, 38.5% three-point shooter, 10 points, 4 boards per contest, and overall, it is an Oregon State team that they shoot about 35.5% from three-point. It's really been their main strength because they've been outside the top 225 in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis on offense. They don't get a lot going on the inside, but they are a team that they shoot about 35.5% from three-point. It's a Seattle team that they leave something to be desired on offense. They're overall about 220th with their three-point shooting percentage. You look at them in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, they check in right around about 308th in the country, but I just think that the defense is going to be able to win out. Huron Don has been able to do a nice job down low, give you about a block, 4+ rebounds per game. Braden Maldonado, 14.5 points, 2.5 assists per game. And then John Suckio, Will Hembright. They've been very versatile pieces with a combined 9 rebounds, about 23 points per game. Between the two of them, you almost get 4 assists per game as well. John Christophilus is a little bit of an off the bench three-point shooter at about 36.5%. And for Seattle, they do shoot just 71% at the free throw line. Bit of a worry spot in a pressure spot, but I do think that they get the job done in a game that is going to be a slow down slog and going to feature a lot of defense. Made my line 8.5. I'm going to lay up to 8, and I'm going to be in on the under, set by total 134.5. And now we hit the extra games.
The normal betting board picks are complete, but there are some extra games today, so we go into the bonus.
306-501, 306-502. You've got Holy Cross against Loyola Maryland. Loyola Maryland is a 4.5 point home favorite. Total on this game, it is 145.5, and it's a circumstance where I set my line at 4. 4.5 does become my buy point on Holy Cross. Holy Cross has been a relatively good perimeter defense with their three-point shooting themselves really falling off. Holy Cross last year was a top 30 team with their three-point shooting percentage. It's down to 32.4% this season. Really just hasn't traveled well, shooting 30.7% from three-point range away from home. Loyola Maryland, though, they shoot 32.3% from three-point range, so both of these teams are relative equals here. Holy Cross, relatively good in terms of taking care of the ball. Top 115 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis. Now, we'll say for Holy Cross, they've been dealing with a little bit of an injury recently to Joe Nugent, a guy that's able to give you 10.5 points, shoots in the mid-30s from 3, gives you about 4 boards per contest, but Tyler Paulson is a double-figure scorer that's able to take over games, and for Loyola Maryland, they've been dealing with a lot of injuries as well. They should have their full allotment of guys available in this game, but they've been dealing with it with a lot of their top scorers, as you've been having in and out of the lineup. Jacob Theodusu, who's been able to give you 14 points, 4.5 boards per contest. You've got Emmett Adir, who's been able to give you about 5.5 rebounds per game as your top rebounder. Both guys missed 5+ games this season, but I do think that both should be able to play in this game. Braden Speed, meanwhile, he gives you about 36% three-point shooting, 15 points per game, and one thing that this Loyola Maryland team has done a good job of is download their offense. Has been a top 200 team with regards to their 2-point shooting percentage, but measured up with Holy Cross taking a drop off with their 3-point shooting, it becomes all the more paramount that Loyola Maryland is outside the top 300 with regards to their own 2-point shooting defense, so that's a bit of an issue for Loyola Maryland. They do find themselves in the top 225 with regards to their overall rebound percentage. They don't really put you on the free throw line often, but I do think that Holy Cross is going to be able to do an okay job in terms of holding in there. You've been able to have Gabe Warren give you about 10.5 points, 4 boards, shoots in the mid-30s from 3-point range. It's a Holy Cross team that they themselves are getting blowtorched down low. They're outside the top 320 with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage as well. They don't grab for themselves second and third chances, but top 125 team in terms of defensive rebound percentage. Should have a lot of clean possessions in this game. Not really a fast game. Holy Cross, about 344th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Loyola Maryland, they're checking in about 164th. Did set my total as a result at a 144, so I like the under. And with Loyola Maryland, set them at 4, so 4.5 plus is my buy point on Holy Cross. And wrap things up with 306-503, 306-504. Eastern Kentucky is on the road against North Alabama. North Alabama, home underdogs of 4.5 points, 149 after 115 half is the total, and made Eastern Kentucky only a 1.5 point favorite. I'm going to be willing to take the points. The calling card for Eastern Kentucky for so long has been the fact that they have been one of the better teams in terms of generating turnovers in all of college basketball, and that's not the case this year. 297th in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. North Alabama is even worse at 325th, and frankly, I wish I knew what North Alabama was doing well, because this is a team that in terms of points scored on a per possession basis is 295th outside the top 275 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Eastern Kentucky has honestly been relatively solid with their offense, 142nd in terms of points per possession, but that does fall well outside the top 150 when they're away from home, so that's been a little bit of an issue as you've had Turner Buttery along with as well Juan Cranford, who comes over from St. Francis, really do a nice job headlining the backcourt. These two guys are combining for about 23 points per game. Cranford shoots 37.5% from three, Buttery shoots 35% from the outside, but again, not generating the turnovers that they have in the past. Montavious Myrick has been able to give you about 11.5 points, 7 boards, and throws in there about 2 assists per game, a steal, a block per contest, so he's done a little bit of this and that. Awesome ball when you've needed him to step up. He's been able to do a relatively okay job there, but for Eastern Kentucky, they're just getting blowtorched down low, and for North Alabama, what I think is going to be able to keep them lively in this game is the fact that you've got the best rebounder in this game, and that would be one Mr. Cornelius Williams, who's been supplying 12 points, 9.3 rebounds per game, and then in the backcourt, you do have Dante Bacchus, so give you 15 points, 5.5 rebounds for a team that really does not shoot it well from three. He shoots 30.5% from three. Team as a whole, they do shoot 31% from the outside. Team does an okay job in terms of taking care of the ball. Top 200 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis, but that said, they are outside the top 300 with regards to opponents' 2-point and 3-point shooting percentage, but I do think that's going to be a relatively slow down game as well. This North Alabama team, in terms of total possessions per game, they are checking in right around about 303rd in the country. I think that could be a little bit costly to the total here. I did set my total at a 149.5, but with this Eastern Kentucky team really having a lot of issues on the inside, it's an Eastern Kentucky team that, in terms of defensive rebound percentage, is right around about 236th in all of college basketball. And if you look at the opponent's 2-point shooting percentage, they have been just absolutely getting blown away there at 333rd. I think that keeps North Alabama lively in this game. So set my line at 1.5. Won't take the points with North Alabama, and at a 150 plus, I'm in on the under. And with North Alabama, willing to take the points as I did set them as a 1.5 point underdog. And that'll wrap things up for the Sunday edition of Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks to Ryan McIntyre, who does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He joined me in the last segment. If you do like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever you hear podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one or two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_D1. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Coming at you guys every single day on this podcast with tips and analysis on every game every day. So I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.